The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Struggle. Without any hesitation, Qishuang immediately rushed to the direction where Kamiyamu landed. The gap between Jonin and Genin was unimaginable, not to mention that the opponent was a Jonin of the Uchiha clan. In terms of the combat power of the Uchiha clan, their Jonin were generally stronger than most Jonin. Therefore, running away was meaningless for Qishuang. According to his own estimation, without Kamiyamu's obstruction, he could not escape more than 200 meters with his leg strength. Therefore, not only could he not escape at this moment, but he had to fight with his back to the wall. Although he didn't know what Kamiyamu's situation was, it was in his best interest to save him at the moment. Because his chakra was almost exhausted, even if Kamiyamu only had the strength to strike once, it would be a great help to him. Teacher Mu, how are you injured? Qishuang asked anxiously, hurriedly helping Kamiyamu, who was lying on the ground and dying. The young teacher's chest was already stained with blood, and the blood was flowing out of his chest. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop the blood from flowing out. After a while, even his clothes were stained with blood. Hearing the cry of his subordinate, the dying Kamiyamu slowly opened his eyes. He was stunned at first, and then he realized that his subordinate had created a miracle again. This little guy who had just been on the battlefield for a short time had killed 2 Konoha Chunin above his level. Unfortunately, he, as the leader of the team, did not set a good example. The first time he encountered the enemy, he not only lost 2 subordinates, but also his own life. He grabbed the corner of his subordinate's clothes and said hoarsely, hurry up. I can't be saved. He knew his own injuries better than anyone else. Uchiha's knife pierced his chest and back, and with a kick on the wound, he was already beyond saving. At this point, all he could do was to persuade this subordinate who created 2 miracles to leave quickly. Pray that the other party can create a miracle again and escape the pursuit of Uchiha. Qishuang smiled bitterly and shook his head, whispering, I want to leave too, but I can't run faster than him, teacher. Then, he leaned close to Kamiyamu's ear and whispered, Teacher Mu, please help me one last time. At the same time, Kamiyamu felt as if something was stuck on his back. It was a ninja tool that he was very familiar with. After thinking about it for a while, he understood the meaning of the words of this little subordinate. But, very good. He nodded gently, with a relieved smile on his face. Although his team was almost wiped out this time, he saw the birth of a qualified ninja. He was happy to do his last bit of strength to help the other party survive. Leave an excellent seed for the Hidden Mist Village. Or, at this moment, he no longer had the qualifications to refuse. From the moment this little subordinate took action, it didn't make any sense whether he agreed or not. At the same time, a young Konoha ninja slowly walked out of the gradually dissipating fog, holding a silver short sword in his hand, but blood was dripping from the tip of the sword. It was Uchiha who had defeated Kamiyamu with a counterattack. He glanced around, but did not find the figure of his companion. He looked at the mist ninja child who had half of his arm scratched in surprise, and said in surprise, did you kill that guy? The 2 fought to the death, but only this child was left. Although he also found it incredible, he really didn't know how to explain this situation except this answer. Then, seeing that the other party was looking at him nervously without replying, he sneered nonchalantly, I knew that these 3 guys were all trash. Going on a mission with them is a complete waste of time. You can't even handle such a genin level kid. If it gets out, others will think that my Uchiha family is incompetent. It's really embarrassing. After saying that, he spat fiercely again. It seemed that forming a team with those 3 people was a matter of shame. Then, he looked at the 2 mist ninjas, one big and one small, and taunted them. Kids, it seems that you 2 have a special relationship. At this time, you haven't turned around and run away yet, which really touched me. Normally, when the leader ninja died, most of the other team members were scared and fled in panic, without any intention to fight. It was really rare to find subordinates who were willing to stay and fight until the last moment. especially when the other party was such a child in his teens. When the leader ninja died in battle, and he was about to face death, he didn't turn around and run away, which was really precious. To show my admiration for you, I decided to leave you a whole body. Before he finished speaking, he used a body flash technique to flash in front of the two people, raised his short sword, and was about to cut them down. Facing such a low-level kid, he didn't even have the interest to use ninjutsu, because all the actions of the other party were clearly seen in his Sharingan, without any omissions. He was not afraid of the dying struggle of such a low-level kid. As for the Chunin level Miss Ninja, he also didn't take it seriously. The opponent was hit by his fatal blow, and was estimated to be on his last breath. There was no threat at all. At the same time, at the moment, when the opponent took action, Qishuang immediately let go of Kamiyamu in his arms and retreated hurriedly. Uchihate's speed was much faster than him. He had to remain highly alert to avoid the opponent's surprise attack. Talking meant distracting his energy, which was why he didn't reply. Although Qishuang's reaction was very fast, it was still not worth mentioning in Uchihate's Sharingan. He clearly saw the scene of the opponent abandoning his companions and dodging backwards. He couldn't help but feel a little more contempt in his heart, and secretly said, "So, you are afraid of death too?" The short sword slashed down without any fancy moves. He had enough confidence to kill the opponent with one blow. Because, although the opponent reacted quickly, he still did not escape his effective attack range. Got it? Seeing the distance between the short sword and the target getting closer and closer, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. At this moment, the dying mist hidden ninja at his feet suddenly moved. He suddenly opened his eyes, as if he had regained his vitality. He didn't know where he got the strength from, but he hugged his legs and pushed his head back, which made him slow down. With just a moment's delay, Qishuang narrowly avoided the fatal blow. Arsehole. The blow that was sure to win failed, making Uchihate furious. He said fiercely, "Since you are still reluctant to die, then I will let you die thoroughly." As he said that, he put away his knife and wanted to give Kamiyamu one last blow. It was at this time that he saw the 4 or 5 detonating talismans on Kamiyamu's back, and the smug smile stained with blood. "Arsehole," Uchihate cursed, while trying to pull his legs out of the other's arms. At this point, he didn't understand that the scene just now was not the deep friendship between companions, but a trap to show weakness to lure him in. Unfortunately, Kamiyamu knew that he would die, and he was determined to die, so he would never give the other party a chance to escape. He gritted his teeth and used his last bit of strength. No matter how Uchihate struggled, he could not break free from his entanglement. For a ninja, a distance of 5 or 6 meters is just a blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, Nanushiro had retreated 5 meters. "Goodbye, Teacher Mew." Explode. He immediately triggered a trace of chakra left on the detonating tag, and activated the detonating tag. I always feel that I can't write the kind of thing I want. I don't know how many collections will be lost once this chapter is published. My heart hurts. Chapter 27 Source. Arsehole, let go. Uchihate became more and more anxious after noticing the abnormality on the detonating tag. Unfortunately, no matter how he struggled, the dying mist hidden ninja seemed to be welded to him, and he couldn't get rid of it at all. Boom. The detonating tags attached to Kamiyamu's back exploded completely. A small red sun completely submerged the figures of the two people, and a huge shockwave followed closely behind, carrying a muddy yellow air wave, and directly blew Qishuang away a few meters away. After the impact stopped, he held onto a tree trunk next to him, and slowly climbed up. Although he was not directly hit by the explosion just now, he was exhausted after fighting repeatedly. Now after such a fall, he was tired even to move his fingers. Pa. He spit out the remaining leaves and mud in his mouth, and began to search for the traces of the two people. A shallow pit with a radius of nearly 2 meters was left at the place where Kamiya and Mew had been entangled before. Some scattered pieces of clothing were scattered around, and a dark figure was left at the bottom of the pit. There was no doubt that it was Kamiya. Kamiya was already seriously injured, and after being exploded by the detonating talisman, it was impossible for him to be alive. In addition, the detonating talisman was attached to his back. From the perspective of force, His remains could only be pressed to the ground by the impact of the explosion and could not be blown away. Therefore, the wreckage could only be Kamiya's. However, this was not the focus of Qishuang's current concern. What he wanted to find was the trace of Uchihite. Uchihite's current situation was related to his life and death. How could there be no body? Qishuang looked in the direction where the man had just stood and did not see any bodies left around. According to common sense, being bombarded by 5 or 6 detonating talismans at such a close distance, without special defensive techniques, no one could withstand the explosion. If Uchihite was still alive after the explosion, and was only seriously injured, he could barely accept it. But now, not only did he not see the body, but there was no human figure. This was too unbelievable. Could it be that the guy was not dead at all, or even not seriously injured, but was hiding and preparing to attack me? Based on the situation in front of him, Qishuang came up with an extremely shocking answer. Go to hell, kid. At the same time, a hideous voice came from above his head. He looked up and saw Uchihite, who was in tattered clothes, standing on the treetop. There was something hanging on his leg, which could be vaguely seen as a broken arm. He saw his left hand clenched in front of his mouth, puffed up his cheeks, and blew a breath. Fire style, great fireball technique. A small flame spurted out of Uchihite's mouth, passed through the palm of his clenched left hand, and suddenly turned into a large fireball with a diameter of more than 2 meters, pressing down on the hateful kid below. He would not make the same mistake again. It was because of his carelessness and contempt that he wanted to use the short sword to finish off the other party that he fell into the trap of the 2 men and was almost killed by the mist-hidden Chunin in a way that both of them died. In order to prevent any accidents this time, he decided to use ninjutsu to kill the other party completely with one blow. Oh no. Seeing this scene, Qishuang's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Because of the fatigue and lack of chakra, his perception and sensitivity decreased a lot. He found out too late, and with his current physical condition, he had no time to dodge. In other words, a Jonin wanted to sneak attack a Genin, and even if he was in good condition, he had no chance to dodge. Despite this, he still tried his best to escape, trying to avoid the overwhelming fireball and fight for a ray of life for himself. However, as the heat wave behind him approached, his mood gradually sank to the bottom. Am I going to die here? I won't accept this. Just when he was completely desperate, a slightly childish shout came from the dense forest opposite. Get down. At this moment, this voice fell into Qishuang's ears, like the sound of nature. At this location, this sudden sound, there is no doubt that the reinforcement from Kirigakure have arrived. If it was Konoha's support, there would be no need to shout like this. Just attack him from both sides, and it would be over. He didn't hesitate at all, and immediately rushed down, and lay directly on the ground. Then, he saw 3 people rushing out of the forest opposite, one big and two small, all wearing 4 head guards with 4 ripple marks, which just confirmed his guess that the people coming were 3 Kirigakure ninjas. Water style, water formation pillar, water style, water formation pillar. 2 children and their teens, 1 boy and 1 girl, immediately puffed up their cheeks and spit out 2 water columns, which shot straight at his back, the unstoppable red fireball. The water column grew an inch larger with each advance. When it passed over Qishuang's head, the diameter of each column was more than 1 meter. Hiss. At the moment when the 2 water columns collided with the fireball, he crawled on the ground and immediately heard the sound of the cold water being boiled and evaporated by the high temperature. Even though he was more than 2 meters away from the fireball, he could still feel the heat contained in the water vapor, which made his skin hurt. TSK. Have the reinforcement arrived? On the other side, seeing that his fire escape was blocked, Uchihite frowned. This place is too close to the front camp of Kirigakure. Although there are only 3 reinforcement in this wave, he is not stupid enough to think that this is all the troops in the front camp of Kirigakure. Obviously, this is an exploration team sent by others to check the situation. Now that the war here has been discovered, the subsequent reinforcement will arrive soon. Moreover, although he just escaped, he was not unscathed. The explosion at such a close distance injured him badly. He lost 5 of his 10 combat powers. It was difficult for him to deal with the new Mist Chunin and 2 Genin. He had to retreat. Thinking of this, He withdrew the technique without hesitation, gave up the plan to fight with the two Miss Genin, turned around quickly, and went back the way he came. Noticing that the other party had withdrawn the technique, the two Miss Genin also stopped releasing the technique, avoiding unnecessary waste of chakra. "How are you?" The little girl of the two tried hard to help Nana Qishuang up, and asked with concern. "I'm fine." Nana Qishuang shook her head, and gave a forced smile. Compared with the 3 people who died in the same team as him, he only suffered some minor injuries. It was already a great luck, so he was naturally fine. "Who attacked you? Whose wreckage is that over there?" The leading Miss Chunin walked up to Nana Qishuang, and pointed at the black remains in the shallow pit and asked. Qishuang glanced at the remains and said slowly, "He is our captain, Kamiayaki Chunin." At this moment, he suddenly noticed that Kamiyaki's right arm was obviously much shorter. Obviously, it was missing a part. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Encounter. So that's how it is. Seeing this scene, and thinking of the half-broken arm hanging on Uchihate's leg, Qishuang suddenly realized. That guy must have used the short knife in his hand to cut off one of Kamiyamu's arms just before the explosion, so that he could get rid of the entanglement. This also explains why one of Mu's remains is short of an arm, and Uchihate's leg has an inexplicable broken limb. Suddenly, as if realizing something, he hurriedly said to the 3 people, "Hurry up and chase. That's a Jonin of the Uchiha family. He is seriously injured. It's a good opportunity to capture him alive. He has the dual identities of Uchiha and Konoha Jonin. He must know a lot of important information. If we can capture him alive, it will definitely be a great achievement." After all, judging from the situation at the time, Uchiha was too close to the location of the detonating tag. Even if the other party escaped by cutting off Mu's arm, it would be impossible to completely avoid the damage of the explosion. Coupled with the fact that he saw that the other party was in rags and looked like a beggar, he had every reason to believe that the other party must have been seriously injured, and his combat power was greatly reduced. A Jonin of the Uchiha family? Hearing his words, the Kirigakure Chunin who came to help took a breath of cold air. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a difficult enemy so close to the Kirigakure front camp. The Uchiha family is a well-known and prestigious family in Konoha, and it is also a well-known fighting family in the ninja world. Its Sharingan Kekkai Genkai has forged a reputation that makes people stop in their tracks with countless blood. In addition, the Uchiha clan is one of the elders who established Konoha, so it has an extraordinary status in Konoha. If the other party is also a Jonin and knows a lot of important information, this possibility is very high. But, he is a Jonin of Konoha. The Kirigakure Chunin who came was a little hesitant. The reputation of the Uchiha clan is not blown, but earned through real fighting. In addition, with the gap between the Jonin and the Chunin, he didn't have the confidence to fight the other party. "Don't be afraid." Qishuang glanced at the black remains and said, "He was seriously injured by Kamiyamu's detonating talisman and a way of mutual destruction. His combat power has been greatly reduced. You just need to catch up with him and hold him back. When the follow-up reinforcement catch up, you will definitely be able to capture him alive." "Are you sure?" The man confirmed again. They came in a hurry, and the other party retreated in a hurry. The two sides did not meet formally, so he didn't know the actual physical condition of the other party. "I'm sure." Qishuang nodded firmly. Uchihate's ragged and scarred appearance, until now, he still remembers it clearly. It was obviously a big injury. Otherwise, with his Jonin status, facing the 3 Miss Ninjas who came, he would not have fled without looking back. "Captain?" The little boy of the Genin level glanced at the leader, showing an eager look. He couldn't wait to fight with the famous Sharingan and even have the chance to capture him alive. "Okay." The leader of the team thought for a moment, nodded, looked at Qishuang again, and said solemnly, "You wait here and contact the follow-up reinforcement, and the 3 of us will chase him to stop him." "Well, I remember." Qishuang agreed immediately without objection. Any jonin has a pivotal position in each ninja village, let alone the jonin of the Uchiha family. Although it is a great achievement to capture such a Konoha jonin alive, his own chakra has been exhausted, and he has no strength to fight again. It is a question whether he can catch up. Even if he catches up, in his current state, he is just a burden. It was not easy to escape death. If he is greedy for merit and rushes forward and falls into the hands of that person, it will be a big fool. Compared with the merit, he still thinks that his life is more valuable. Ming, Zabuza, let's chase. He greeted the two subordinates next to him, and the leader of the mist hidden ninja followed the chakra in the air and immediately took the lead to chase in the direction where the Konoha jonin left. As soon as the voice fell, the excited boy immediately followed. Be careful, the remaining girl said to Qishuang very seriously. Yes, I will. Thank you. Qishuang replied with a reassuring smile. Then, the little girl with brown hair and green eyes left with peace of mind and followed the direction where the two companions left. Looking at her gradually receding back, Qishuang's thoughts drifted far away. His mind fell on the little boy just now. Zabuza, I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. He sighed softly. From the moment they met, he felt that the child looked familiar, but he couldn't remember it for a while. It was not until he heard the leader shout out the name of Zabuza that he realized that the little boy was the madman who killed all the candidates in the same place. His classmate, the demon Zabuza. It's no wonder that he didn't recognize him at first. Zabuza at this time was only 10 years old, and his appearance was very different from when he appeared as the holder of the beheading sword in the original work. In addition, although Zabuza was his classmate, the study life of the original owner of his body was not his real memory. He himself had only met Zabuza once during the graduation exam, and more than a year had passed, so he didn't have a deep impression. Therefore, he didn't recognize Zabuza at first. At this moment, meeting him again, he was full of emotion. On the other side, seeing the little girl catch up with the team, Zabuza asked curiously, "What did you do? You caught up so late?" "Nothing, just told him to be careful." The little girl replied nonchalantly. "I think you are worried about that guy for nothing." Zabuza shook his head. "What's wrong?" the little girl asked in surprise. Even the leading ninja in front looked back at the two curiously. Zabuza twitched his lips and said helplessly, "That annoying lucky guy, even the Uchiha jonin can't kill him. I really can't think of anyone who can kill him." Or, let the three ninjas of Konoha try. "An annoying lucky guy? Do you know him?" the little girl asked in surprise. From his tone, the two should know each other. "He is the only survivor of my graduation exam." Zabuza curled his lips. In that exam, the guy was poisoned by himself and temporarily withdrew from the exam. Although he became a laughingstock for a while, he also avoided his blade. His plan to wipe out all the candidates in the same exam had a flaw. Therefore, he was very impressed with this lucky classmate. Therefore, when they just met, he recognized the man. Chapter 29 Recovery. It was him? A strange light flashed in the little girl's eyes, and she joked, "Last time he escaped from you, a ghost, and today he escaped from the hands of the Uchiha family's jonin. That guy is really lucky. No wonder you said that the three ninjas of Konoha should try." As she said that, the little girl covered her stomach and pointed at the little boy next to her and giggled. Hearing this, the leader of the Kirigakure tunin couldn't help but sigh inwardly. That boy was really lucky. A mere genin. Even the leader teacher died, but he actually survived the hands of the Uchiha family's jonin until their arrival. It must be said that this is really a miracle. Suddenly, he raised his hand to signal and whispered to the two of them, "Okay, stop making trouble. I can sense the breath of that person and be alert. Although I don't know how badly that person is injured, just in case, we should be careful." After that, he took two subordinates and accelerated to chase after the fresh footprints left on the tree trunk. On the other side, Qishuang collected the remains of Kamiyaki and the head of Kamimura together. Looking at the charred remains of Kamiyaki, he sighed and whispered, "Don't blame me, Teacher Mew." Judging from Kamiyaki's injuries at the time, it was almost certain that he was completely hopeless. Even without his detonating tags, the other party would not survive for more than 10 minutes. Fortunately, Kamiaki understood his words and what he was going to do before he died, and did not refuse, which made him feel less guilty. At least, Kamiaki's death was his own will, not the result of his coercion. Not long after, a burst of dense footsteps came from the dense forest. Judging from the footsteps alone, the number of people coming was at least more than 10 digits. Qishuang knew that the reinforcement of Kirigakure had arrived. Because, on this battlefield, the closest to this place is Kirigakure's frontline camp. Therefore, the fastest support can only be from their Kirigakure side. The footsteps came like rain, dripping in the forest, dripping. Then, he picked out 2 of his subordinates from the side, pointed at the wreckage in Nanishuang on the ground, and instructed, "You 2 send them back safely, and the rest of you follow me. The goal is to capture that Uchiha Jonin alive." He didn't need to be reminded by others. He knew very well the importance of a Konoha Jonin, especially an Uchiha Jonin, to Kirigakure. To be precise, it was the intelligence in the other party's mind that was important to the strategic situation of Kirigakure. Therefore, he made up his mind to capture that Konoha Jonin alive. Then, leaving 2 subordinates behind, he immediately took the rest of his subordinates and followed the mark left by the 3-man team just now, and hurriedly chased after them. After the companions' figures completely disappeared from the sight, the one who was left asked Qishuang in surprise, "Kit, we found a headless corpse on the way here. He is about 10 years old. Judging from his attire, he should be from our Kirigakure. Could he be your companion?" Qishuang thought for a moment, and replied in a low voice, "A member of our team left the team first, and went back to get reinforcement, but he died at the hands of the Konoha ninja." Then, he pointed to the black ball next to Kamiyamu's remains, and said in a complicated way, "That's his head, but we don't know where the body is. I think the headless corpse that you 2 seniors saw should be his." Alas, hearing this, one of the Kirigakure ninjas sighed, as if he thought he was particularly sad, so he patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. "This is a battlefield. Any one of us may die at any time. So, you must learn to get used to it, so that you can turn grief into strength, and avoid becoming one of the thousands of dead." "Yeah. I remember, senior." Qishuang nodded, and tried to squeeze out a few tears. Next to him, another mist ninja used the sealing scroll to clean up the wreckage, and said to the 2, "Let's go, and take the headless body with us, and then we will go back to the camp." Then, the 2 took Qishuang back with them, and in his sad eyes, they cleaned up Kamimura's body, and the 3 of them went back to the camp without looking back. A team of 4 people, except for him, all died in the battle. Even the leader of the team was not spared, but he, a vulnerable genin level kid, escaped, which immediately aroused many doubts. After being treated by the medical department, Qishuang was immediately called to the intelligence interrogation department for a battle situation check. "Little guy, what exactly did you encounter today? Tell me in detail." A mist ninja asked him again, and handed him a glass of water with a smile. "Thank you." Qishuang nodded while sitting on the chair, carefully took the cup of water handed to him, took a sip, and said slowly, "Today we..." Before he finished speaking, a feeling of dizziness came over him, and he felt groggy. He shook his head and frowned secretly. "What's going on? What's wrong with my head?" Snap. His fingers unconsciously loosened, and the cup of water suddenly fell to the ground. The crisp sound of glass breaking filled his ears, and he suddenly realized something. "Assholes. These bastards drugged me. They want to use the power of drugs to hypnotize and interrogate me." Unfortunately, he knew it too late, and it was too late. Or even if he knew, there was nothing he could do. After all, he was just a child in his teens, and it was impossible for him to compete with a huge village. If the superiors wanted to interrogate him, he had no choice but to surrender. Now, he could only pray that these bastards would not ask some inexplicable questions, so as not to expose the secret that he had memories of his previous life. Then, his thoughts fell into chaos and he completely lost consciousness. When he woke up again, the people around him looked at him with extremely complicated eyes. It seemed that they had all obtained the information they wanted. One of them pointed at him and joked to his companion next to him, "This kid is not a good guy either. At present, their team is in name only. Why not assign him to the team of Kito's abuser and let them continue their friendship as classmates?" It just so happens that the Kito team is still short of one person. It's just right to send him over. Chapter 30 Box Cat. Yeah. One of them nodded in agreement and said, I'll submit a proposal to the boss later to arrange for this guy to go there. What are you talking about? Qishuang asked dazedly while lying on the chair. He just woke up and felt a little dizzy, so he didn't hear what they were talking about. He just barely heard the words Ghost Man in formation. Hearing this, one of them said to him playfully, we are discussing how to arrange your whereabouts. Huh? Qishuang was a little confused. One of them gave him a complicated look and continued to explain, Kit, we have thoroughly verified the process of your team's annihilation. Although the death of Kirigakure Chunin was not entirely caused by you, your actions are also hard to accept. As he said that, he seemed to remember something, smiled self-deprecatingly, and said, in fact, we, a group of guys who graduated by killing classmates, have no right to blame you for anything. It's just that I hope you remember that this is a battlefield after all. Those who abandon their companions at will one day be abandoned by their companions. No one will believe you and trust you with their backs. The result of this can only be to make you a loner. Without the support of your companions, this is very dangerous on the battlefield. I hope you take care of yourself. In addition, the man changed his voice and said, in view of what you did to Kirigakure, we decided to propose to the higher ups to assign you to the team where Kito's abuser is. Cruel and ruthless guys like you are more suitable to stay together. Oh. Qishuang responded softly, facing the other party's accusations, seemed a little depressed. In fact, he was secretly delighted in his heart. It seems that the people from the intelligence interrogation department only asked about the process of our team's annihilation and did not ask anything else. I'm lucky, he thought secretly. However, he changed his mind and felt that it was natural that they did not ask other matters. After all, who would have thought that a child of 10 years old like him had a soul from another world? As for directly going deep into his mind to explore his memory, this was a bit of a hassle. Just to verify their battle situation, they had to deliberately find someone to look through his memory, unless the people from the Kirigakure intelligence interrogation department were bored. Taking a step back, his body did not have the memory of the other world, only his soul had the things that should not appear here. If someone made a great effort to directly check his memory, they could only see the original memory of this body, and those things that should not be seen by others could not be seen by others at all. He guessed that only extremely advanced hypnosis or the power of the reincarnation human path could be used to get those information that should not appear from his mouth. But then again, as long as he keeps his mouth shut and doesn't reveal anything, the things hidden in him will be the same as nothing in the eyes of others, because no one will know that such things exist. No one will deliberately come to investigate. Just like Scrudinger's cat, people didn't know any clues about the existence of the cat at the beginning, so they didn't deliberately explore what was in the box. And the cat in the box, in the eyes of others, didn't exist at all. Now, the memory of the other world he has is the cat in the box. He just needs to keep his mouth shut and everything will be fine. The earlier worries were a bit redundant. Seeing him scared in the chair, one person sent him away mercilessly. Okay, Nanashiro Genin, you can leave. At the end, the man gave another instruction. Remember our advice. Oh. Nanashiro slowly stood up from the chair and left the camp, where the intelligence interrogation department was located dejectedly. As for the situation of the pursuit of Uchiha, he was not clear, nor was he interested in asking. He only knew that on the afternoon of the day he returned to the camp, a piece of news spread widely in the camp. Kirigakure captured a Konoha Jonin alive, and it was also a Jonin of the Uchiha family. Although he had not met the Konoha prisoner, he had just seriously injured a Jonin of the Uchiha family, and then Kirigakure captured a Jonin prisoner, who was also from the Uchiha family. If they said that the person they captured was not Uchiha, it would be too coincidental, so Qishuang was almost certain that the captured Konoha Jonin was Uchiha. Immediately, the defense and alert of the entire Kirigakure frontline camp immediately rose to the highest level, and they looked like they were ready for battle. Just as the Konoha Jonin prisoner was taken to the intelligence interrogation department, a proposal from the intelligence interrogation department was handed to the desk of the general command. One person opened the document and read softly, "Nana Frost, a genin from Kirigakure, used his dying companion as bait and used the detonation tag to blow up a jonin and seriously injured him. The intelligence interrogation department proposes to include him in the team of Kijin's abuser." After reading it, the person glanced at the other people in the tent and said softly, "What do you think?" One person put down the document in his hand and said solemnly, "Such a cold-blooded guy, and that Kijin are just right to form a team. I have no objection." Second. The others also nodded in agreement. They still have a lot of official business to deal with, and they don't have so much energy to waste on such a 10-year-old child, so they don't want to care about it anymore. This proposal that has nothing to do with the overall situation should be passed directly. Then, the person holding the proposal immediately stamped it, handed it to the subordinate next to him, and said, "Let the personnel coordination department arrange it." Yes. After taking the document, the person immediately left the tent with a teleportation technique. Soon, a ninja holding a transfer order brought Nanishin to a tent. "Is King Chun in here?" The man shouted loudly into the tent. The target he called was named King, a Chunin of Kirigakure and the captain of a team. "Who is it? So annoying. I didn't even have a good rest after just coming back from a mission." With a burst of cursing, a young ninja in blue clothes came out of the tent. It was the person he was looking for. "King, why is it you?" He noticed a little boy outside the tent at a glance. The child was the lucky one they had rescued before, and it was because of the other party's reminder that they were able to share the credit for capturing Konoha's Jonin alive. Then, two children and their teens, a boy and a girl, came out of the tent. Seeing the little boy outside the tent, the girl excitedly pulled her companion and joked, "Zabuza, look. Your lucky classmate is here." Humph. The little boy who came out of the tent snorted coldly and turned his head to the side, but his pair of black eyes were secretly looking at his old classmate. Obviously, he was not as indifferent as he appeared. Chapter 31 New Team. Are there any new orders from above? Naoki Jonin? The young ninja who came out of the tent asked the newcomer curiously. The man who just called him was a member of the personnel coordination department, responsible for personnel transfer and allocation. Although he didn't know the purpose of the other party coming here, he had a guess in his heart when he saw the little boy following behind him. "Naoki brought this kid here. Could it be that he wants to be incorporated into my team?" He thought so when his eyes fell on the little boy. Because they have not found a suitable target, the vacant manpower in their team has not been replenished for a long time. After all, it is a wartime state now, and if you don't pay attention, people will die, or the team will be wiped out, so he has always maintained an attitude of preferring to have less than enough, and has not rushed to replenish the manpower. Today, the vacant position in their team may welcome a new member. Naoki didn't explain too much, but just gently handed over the document in his hand. "What are you doing?" mysteriously. King muttered, took the document, and slowly opened it. The two subordinates next to him also cast curious eyes. Unfortunately, they were too short, and King had no intention of showing them the information, so even if they stood on tiptoe, they could not see any words. Name, Ninashiro. King read it word by word, but when he saw the description of the battle between Ninashiro team and Uchihate, his face gradually became solemn. He finally understood that it was not luck at all for such a child in his teens to survive the hands of an Uchiha Jonin and even injure him. It was the result of real strength and wisdom. Seeing his face change, Naoki whispered, "How is it? Are you satisfied with this new team member?" King looked at the little boy behind Naoki with a very complicated look, and did not answer immediately. The two little subordinates behind him also looked very excited after hearing Naoki's question. The little girl immediately poked the little boy with her elbow and joked, "Zabuza, now you two old classmates can have a good reunion. Do you have anything to say to him?" Humph. Facing her teasing, the little boy snorted coldly, ignored her, and did not dare to say anything more. Because he knew clearly that his companion was not as cute and weak as he looked on the surface, but was actually very fierce in private. His strength was close to that of a Chunin, completely suppressing him. If he was not satisfied, he would fight with others. Even he, who was known as a demon man, was beaten up by him several times. This was the reason why he did not dare to provoke him. Speaking of which, his companion was also a classmate of his, but they were not in the same examination room when they took the graduation exam that year. If not for this, he even doubted whether he would have a chance of survival if he had faced him when he graduated that year. Ignoring the two junior subordinates who were playing around, King said to Naoki helplessly after some thought, "From the information, he has a strong sense of combat, much better than many newcomers who have just arrived at the front line. I really can't find any major problems with him. If there is anything that makes me dissatisfied, it's only what he did. If not, why would the higher-ups transfer him to you?" Naoki glanced at the two junior subordinates behind him schematically and jokingly said, "Anyway, you already have two problem children here, so you don't need one more like him." Hearing this, King twitched his mouth, looked back subconsciously, and said helplessly, "Okay, I don't have any objection. Let him stay. Then, I'll take my leave." Taking back the documents in his hand, Naoki disappeared in front of the account with a flash of the body. Then, King once again set his eyes on the boy brought by Naoki and said solemnly, "Kit, from now on, you are completely incorporated into our team. And I'm called King, and I'm your new captain." Hearing his self-introduction, Qishuang couldn't help but be shocked. Earlier, when he heard the ninja who brought him here call the other party King, he had some doubts and thought he had heard it wrong. Now, hearing the other party introduce it like this, with just a single name, he finally confirmed that the young man in front of him was the Bayan killer of the Hidden Mist village in the future, King. However, at present, the other party's eyes are intact, and they are all original to the body. It seems that the Hidden Mist village has not yet obtained the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. Then, King pointed at the little boy and girl behind him one by one, and continued, "Both of them are your new teammates. This is Kito Zabuza. You were candidates in the same exam, so you should know each other. This is Terumi Mei, who should have graduated at the same time as you, but unfortunately you graduated a year late." Terumi Mei? After hearing King's introduction, Nanashi turned his attention from Zabuza to the little girl next to him. Because Zabuza had attracted his attention first, and the image of Terumi Mei's childhood never appeared in the original work, he did not pay much attention to the little girl, thinking she was just an insignificant ordinary person. Now, after hearing what King said, he realized that from the little girl's appearance, he could faintly see the graceful and elegant demeanor of the adult Terumi Mei. For a moment, he could hardly believe that the little girl in front of him, who looked very cute and harmless, was a strong woman who ended the dark era of Blood Mist Village, the future 5th Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a pretty girl before?" The little girl was suddenly stared at by such a stranger, and she couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. "Sorry, I just felt that you looked like someone, so I was a little fascinated." Being interrupted by her thoughts, Qishuang smiled at her awkwardly. "Xiaolin. Sorry, I changed my name now. Please call me Qishuang." Hearing Zabuza calling out this former name, Qishuang immediately told the other party his new name solemnly. Hearing this, Zabuza looked at the leader in confusion. King nodded, pointed at Nanashi, and introduced him to the two subordinates. "He is your new teammate, named Nanashi, and he is a user of Ice Release Kekkei Genkei. I hope you can get along well in the future and perfectly complete every task assigned by your superiors." As soon as he finished speaking, the little girl couldn't wait to get close to Nanashi, blinking her green eyes, and asked with an innocent smile, "Hey, when you and Zabuza took the graduation exam together, did you really accidentally hurt yourself and withdraw from the exam?" "Ah, yes. Nanashi was caught off guard by being asked about this suddenly, and then nodded with a dry laugh, which looked particularly funny in the eyes of several people. Zabuza and Terumi did not doubt him, but King on the side fell into deep thought. Let alone other things, just from the data of this boy's fight with that Uchiha Jonin, he is definitely not such a sloppy person. Then, the fact that this boy accidentally hurt himself during the first graduation exam and temporarily withdrew from it. I'm afraid there is another story. Thinking of this, King couldn't help but take a closer look at the nervous little boy. When Terumi appeared in the 4th Ninja War, She was 31 years old, the same age as Kakashi, so at this time she was still a little girl of the same age as Zabuza. In addition, her sugar Kikisame is also their age, so they are also in the same period. Finally, I would like to add that my collection has finally exceeded 100, leaving a commemoration. 2019.2.27. Chapter 32 Conspiracy, Part 1. In this way, Qishuang became a member of the King team. He was very satisfied with the arrangement of the superiors. Because the other 3 people in the team were not short-lived, they all survived the Third Ninja World War. Being with them made him feel more at ease than being assigned to other unknown mist hidden teams. Although he did not exist in the original work, he did not know whether he could be blessed by the halo of these 3 people, but it was much better than following other unknown people. As long as he did not do anything unexpected and change the overall situation, then he would have a great chance of following these 3 people and surviving this war safely. He would not have to follow the other unknown people and gamble on the probability of life and death. Because it is very likely to become cannon fodder on the battlefield, such as the team he was in earlier. Although it is very cruel and ruthless to use the simple probability of life and death to measure his former companions, he has no choice. He has not lived enough. War is like this. People die at any time. Even the top level ninjas of each village cannot guarantee that they can live until the end of the war. For example, Uchiha, who possessed the blood limit of the Sharingan and the strength of a Jonin, would be more likely to survive the war than a Genin, a Chunin, or a Jonin. But he fell into the hands of a fledgling Genin. If the people of Konoha knew about the war at that time, they would probably find it incredible. Because this is war. It contains too many unknown accidents and dangers. That night, the intelligence interrogation department immediately converted the information obtained from Uchiha's brain into written materials and placed them on the desk of the general command. In the big tent, 3 ninjas over 50 years old sat behind the desk. They were all survivors of the last Ninja World War and the commanders of this frontline war. One of them read the information, passed it to his companion next to him, and said slowly, "I have a plan. I want to try it." Another person took the information, flipped through it, and asked curiously, "What plan?" The third person who didn't get the information also quietly pricked up his ears, for fear of missing a word. The first person took a deep breath and whispered, "The main opponents on the battlefield here are the Hyuga family and the Uchiha family. We know this. Tell me the point." The second person urged impatiently. He quickly flipped through the information and passed it to the third person. The first person didn't care and continued, "The Uchiha family Sharingan is not bad. With the mist hidden technique blocking it, their ability will be greatly weakened. In addition, Konoha village's main energy is focused on the battlefield in the west, and the pressure on our eastern battlefield is not that great. Logically, with the strength of our village, we should be able to face the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan with ease. But we have been fighting for so long, and the main force is still being dragged along this coastal front and cannot make any progress. Have you ever thought about why this is?" The second person replied without hesitation, "It's the Hyuga family. Their Byakugan's insight is too strong, and the mist hidden technique is useless in front of them. They can always find the weak points of our front before the battle and send heavy troops to attack, thus reversing the situation." Yes, Byakugan. After reading the information, the third person also sighed. There is a large number of Hyuga clan defense lines here, and it is impossible for a large force to hide from their perception. Even if they want to take a detour to raid Konoha village, it has become a luxury. Therefore, the main force of Kirigakure has been firmly pinned down on the coastal front and unable to advance. I think that, if we want to change the current situation, we must first defeat the Hyuga family. The first person said solemnly to the two. The second person rolled his eyes at him and said mockingly, "Do you think we don't know? If it were that simple, we would have reached Konoha village long ago. Why don't you tell me some practical strategic plans?" The third person glanced at the first person calmly, knowing that he must have something else to say, and gestured, "Go on." Cough cough cough. The first person coughed twice, looked at the two people present and said meaningfully, "The Uchiha clan is arrogant and has always been at odds with Konoha. This time, they relied on their own strength to set up camp alone and did not stay in Konoha's main camp. As he spoke, he pointed to the information on the table and continued, right now, we have obtained the defense map of the Uchiha base from the Uchiha Jonin we just captured. Isn't this a good opportunity to take action? Hearing this, the second person frowned and said in surprise, the Uchiha clan is very powerful. Even if we get their camp defense map, I'm afraid there will be heavy casualties if we want to wipe them out completely. The first person looked at him jokingly and asked, who told you to do your best to wipe out the Uchiha clan? Huh? The sudden question from his companion stumped the second person. Didn't you say that you got the Uchiha clan's defense map and took this opportunity to attack? He asked in surprise. According to common sense, they got the Uchiha camp defense map and then took advantage of the situation to attack the Uchiha clan. This is completely logical. But looking at his companions, it was not what he thought at all. The first person shook his index finger and said proudly, didn't I just say it? To change the current situation of the war, we must first destroy the Hyuga family. What do you want to do? The third person sat up straight with a serious look. He was very curious about what kind of plan this companion had drawn up. The first person smiled slightly and continued, under normal circumstances, if we directly attack the Uchiha camp, it must be very difficult. Not only will we not be able to break in within a short period of time, but we will also be attacked from outside by other Konoha troops. It's very bad. But today is different. We have the defense map of the Uchiha camp. It is not difficult to break through the defense of the Uchiha camp and cause them a crisis of extinction. What do you think the Uchiha clan will do in this critical moment? Ask for help. The second person spit out the two words without hesitation and added, as long as the commander of the Uchiha family is not a fool, he should throw away his ridiculous pride and self-esteem and send an emergency distress signal to the Konoha main camp, rather than an ordinary distress signal. But what's the point of doing this? He asked puzzled. The first person said confidently, according to my observation, the current head of the Hyuga family is in the main camp of Konoha, but he never goes into battle easily. So, when the troops of the main camp of Konoha rushed out to rescue Uchiha, he would definitely not go with the army. And if we send someone else to surprise attack the main camp of Konoha, we can kill him, or even capture him alive. What do you think will happen next? As he said that, he looked at his two companions with great excitement. Chapter 33 Conspiracy, Part 2. The third person's eyes lit up, and he said excitedly, the Hyuga family is divided into two branches. The main branch rules everything, and there is only one person in the main branch in each generation. If we capture this generation of the Hyuga main branch alive, we can use it to threaten the entire Hyuga clan, and then break the Hyuga clan's Byakugan defense on the Konoha front. As for the idea of using the Hyuga main branch as a hostage, to threaten the entire Hyuga clan to defect, he didn't dare to think about it. The leader of any force is not a fool. If he really makes such a request, I'm afraid the other party would rather die than become a hostage. Because in that case, I'm afraid that the Hyuga clan will be wiped out by Konoha village before they perish on the battlefield. The first person shook his head and said, it may not be easy to capture him alive. However, the Hyuga clan is in crisis. It's hard to say about other Konoha troops, but the rest of the Hyuga clan will definitely come back to help at all costs. At that time, we will use the Hyuga clan as bait to encircle and suppress the Hyuga clan members who come to rescue, thereby severely damaging the Hyuga clan. If we can kill the Hyuga clan, it will be even better. By then, the Hyuga clan will be leaderless and their morale will plummet. Our victory results will surely double again. After listening to his words, the second person thought about it again and again, and said, even if a large force in the Konoha main camp goes to support the Uchiha, there must be Hyuga clan members among those they left behind. I'm afraid our surprise attack force will be discovered before it even gets close to their camp. Surprise attacks are not easy. The first person took a deep look at his two companions and said solemnly, therefore, the troops we send to surprise attack the Konoha main camp cannot be too many. We need to disperse them as much as possible and outflank them. Let them think that we are just sending a small force to bypass the defense line and harass Konoha village. As he spoke, he pointed at the document on the table and continued, in order to weaken the defense of Konoha's main camp as much as possible, we must show our true strength to attack the Uchiha camp. Let them think that we are desperate and want to destroy them with all our strength. This will attract the main force in Konoha's main camp and create a gap in the defense of Konoha's main camp. Give the surprise attack force the opportunity to kill or even capture the Hyuga clan alive. Hearing this, the third person nodded and said softly, the news that Uchiha was captured alive by us should not have reached there yet. But after 24 hours, the Uchiha clan will find out that he is missing and will definitely change their deployment. By then, if we want to attack their camp again and put considerable pressure on them, we will have to mobilize more troops. And our total force is limited. If there are more on this side, the surprise attack force will definitely have fewer on the other side. To ensure that the surprise attack achieves the desired results, the strength of the surprise attack force cannot be too small. Therefore, we should implement this plan before the Uchiha clan changes their deployment. I propose that the whole army rest now and launch the attack before daybreak. The second person immediately raised his hand and said, second. Okay, I'll go assign people and make arrangements. The first person didn't say much, just left a sentence and turned to leave the command tent. I should also go and prepare. With that, the third person also disappeared into the tent. Soon, each team in the camp received different orders from above. That night, the entire Kirigakure camp was ready for battle, and there was an unusual atmosphere. Although most people didn't know what the superiors were going to do, everyone had a premonition that a big war was about to start. Unlike the previous small-scale trials, this time the command center really decided to fight Konoha. Some people were very scared, because in such a large-scale frontal battle, the death rate of ninjas was the highest, and they were worried about whether they could return after going out this time. Some people were very excited because large-scale battles led to an increase in the death rate of ninjas, which also meant that it was easier to kill opponents and the opportunities to gain opportunities, military exploits and honors were much more than usual. However, no matter they were afraid or excited, they had no other choice. The command of the headquarters was the command of the village, and no one could refuse it. In this way, everyone waited until dawn in anxiety. Everyone, check your ninja tool bags quickly. We will set off immediately after you are ready. At dawn, King shouted to the three little subordinates sleeping in the tent. Hearing the shout, the three people in the sleeping bags on the ground sat up at the same time, and their movements were very agile, not like they had just woken up. It seems that you two have woken up a long time ago. Meditarumi blinked her big eyes, glanced at her two companions cunningly, and said playfully, didn't you wake up for a long time too? Qishuang glanced at her with a smile on her lips. After a short time of getting along, he found that compared with Zabuza, Meditarumi seemed to be more talkative, which made their team more lively and not so lifeless. On the other side, Zabuza didn't say a word, but just stood up silently and began to check his ninja tool bag. Boring guy, like a piece of wood. Meditarumi glanced at him, shook her head, then moved her gaze to Qishuang and teased, you, the new guy, look more interesting. I sincerely hope that you can come back safely after we go out this time. Otherwise, we will have to find a new partner. Really? Qishuang stood up slowly, looked at her deeply, and said, but why do I feel that you are not saying what you mean? Although Meditarumi smiled sweetly, he did not feel any warmth and blessings from the other party. Instead, he saw a bit of teasing. King, who was waiting at the door of the tent, was a little impatient and frowned, saying, hurry up and get ready. Many teams have already left the camp. Hearing this, Meditarumi reluctantly slipped out of her sleeping bag and pouted her lips and said, why are you urging me? Isn't it okay, as long as we complete the task within the time limit? Let me touch up my Makup first. Even if I die, I want to die beautifully. As she said this, she took out a small mirror from her waist bag. Seeing this, Qishuang and Zabuza beside them all dropped their jaws. King, who was at the door, was even more furious. At this time, she was still thinking about touching up her Makup. Then, under the resentful eyes of three men, one big and two small, Meditarumi finished touching up her Makup slowly. Fortunately, she also understood that time was very urgent, so she didn't deliberately waste too much time on it. It only took about 10 minutes in total, which made King's face look much better. After the three of them were ready, King immediately took them out of the camp and went straight north. Will the supporting character be too smart? I have always been worried about this problem. However, I still chose to write it. Maybe this is my style. I won't give it a name. It's meaningless. Chapter 34 Start. Captain King, where are you taking us? Shouldn't the battlefield be in the west? Why are we going north? Meditarumi asked curiously on the way. Our mission is to go around the back of Konoha's main camp, and when their main force is dispatched, and the interior is empty, we will launch a surprise attack, and the target is the current Hyuga clan. King still maintained his pace, and explained without looking back. In order to prevent the strategic plan set by the top leaders from being leaked, except for the captains of each team, the rest of the team members did not know the purpose of this operation. Now that the plan has begun to be implemented, without the risk of leakage, he dared to explain it to the three people. Just our team to raid Konoha's main camp? Isn't this a suicide mission? Did you offend a big shot above, and they deliberately avenge you, Captain? Meditarumi followed closely behind, guessing maliciously. Konoha's main camp has empty defenses, but that is only relative to its own heyday. Even if all the main forces of the other party are dispatched, the remaining little defense is not something that their team of four can break through. Qishuang, who was standing by, thought for a moment and said tentatively, it is indeed impossible for the four of us to break through the main camp of Konoha, so the higher-ups must have sent more than one team. But we didn't see any other teams nearby, which means that the higher-ups must have intentionally dispersed us. Oh. Meditarumi turned her head and looked at him in surprise, and then said, are you so sure that there are other teams? She was not a fool who knew nothing, and naturally understood that the higher-ups must have sent more than just their team. She was just teasing King out of habit. She wanted to use this to figure out the whereabouts of the other teams and the significance of dividing the troops like this. Zabuza, who was standing by, couldn't help but look at Qishuang more after hearing this. He was very curious about what kind of answer this old classmate would give. Nanoshuang thought for a moment and continued, the Byakugan of the Hyuga family has a very strong insight. If we send out a large force to go around the rear, it will easily arouse their vigilance. Although I don't know what method the superiors are going to use to transfer the large force away from the main camp of Konoha, if we arouse the other party's vigilance in advance, then their ability to weaken the defense of the main camp of Konoha will be greatly reduced. At the same time, it will be very dangerous for us to surprise the troops of the main camp of Konoha. So, in order not to arouse the vigilance of Konoha, the superiors deliberately let all our teams disperse. Even if a few teams are discovered, the other party will not pay attention to it. They will only think that we are simply going deep behind the enemy to harass and destroy. Hearing what he said clearly, Meditarumi was skeptical and looked at the leader in front of her, saying loudly, Captain King, is what he said true? Yes. He said it all. King turned his head and glanced at the new team member behind him and was shocked. If the other party was a veteran of the same age as him, he would not be surprised at all to give such a comprehensive analysis, but the other party was a child in his teens at the moment. If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, he really couldn't believe that a child in his teens could have such a comprehensive vision. Genius. Another genius. He silently labeled Qishuang as a genius in his heart. This is a genius who is not inferior to Zabuza and Meditarumi. However, they were born at the wrong time. In this war-torn era, on this chaotic battlefield, geniuses are more likely to become targets of the enemy. Therefore, geniuses always die young. He didn't know whether these three genius subordinates behind him had the possibility of surviving this war. Hearing his response, Meditarumi looked at Qishuang excitedly and immediately leaned over and joked, not bad young man. You don't really look useless. Hearing this, Qishuang rolled her eyes at her and said helplessly, do I really look that weak? Meditarumi nodded very seriously and said, at least, you are the weakest and most useless one in our team. Even worse than Zabuza over there. Zabuza, who was silently hurrying on his way, heard this and felt a twitch in his heart. He never thought that, even if he didn't say anything, he would suffer this unprovoked disaster. After estimating that it was beyond the detection range of the Byakugan, King immediately took 3 subordinates and turned back to the southwest according to the predetermined plan and formed a siege with the rest of the team to completely surround the main camp of Konoha. Not long after, everyone heard the roar of explosions one after another. King knew that it was the main force of the Kirigakure that launched an attack on the Uchiha clan. At the same time, Qishuang also understood the calculations of the Kirigakure headquarters. Because the camp of the Uchiha clan was in the direction where the explosion came from, the Kirigakure headquarters must be preparing to divert Konoha's main force by attacking the Uchiha camp. And through large-scale fighting, they will drag Konoha's main force to the battlefield over there, creating conditions for them to launch a surprise attack. As for how big a tiger can be caught, it depends on how dangerous the Uchiha is. Thinking of this, he suddenly remembered the Uchiha Jonin who was captured yesterday. So that's how it is. He curled his lips. The headquarters must have obtained some important information from the Uchiha Jonin, enough to put pressure on the Uchiha clan to perish, which can attract the troops of Konoha's main camp to come out in full force and create an opportunity for them to launch a surprise attack. By the way, take this thing and have a look. The leader king suddenly took out a photo from his pocket and flicked his finger to the little girl behind him. Who is this? Taking the photo, Terumi asked curiously. The photo showed a middle-aged man with a pair of white eyes. As King hurried on his way, he explained, the man above is the current head of the Hyuga clan. You must remember his appearance and never let him escape. Whether we kill him or capture him alive, we can severely damage the Hyuga clan, and the situation in our Kirigakure can be improved. Oh, he is the current head of the Hyuga clan. I don't see anything special about him. Carefully memorizing the appearance of the person in the photo, Terumi handed the photo to Nana Frost next to her. Taking the photo, Nana Frost quickly memorized his appearance and handed it to Zabuza on the other side. At this moment, a red flare lit up in the sky. Full speed ahead. Prepare to attack. Looking at the red cloud in the sky, King said solemnly to the 3 subordinates. Because the flare was the attack signal agreed upon by the superiors. After saying that, he immediately increased his speed by a large margin and ran straight towards the main camp of Konoha. Understanding the importance of the matter, Nana Frost and the other 2 followed silently. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Besieged. Just as Qishuang and others were rushing towards the main camp of Konoha, the remaining ninjas of Konoha had already started a battle with a small group of mist ninjas. At first, the remaining Konoha ninjas did not take these few mist ninjas seriously, thinking that they were just ordinary harassment troops. But when more and more mist ninjas appeared around them, they realized something was wrong. Bayan. The remaining Hyuga clan members used their Byakugan to expand the search range and prepare to find out what was going on. This is. After searching the 1 kilometer radius of the main camp of Konoha, he immediately broke out in a cold sweat and was so scared that he couldn't speak. What's wrong? A companion nearby asked loudly while throwing a detonating kunai. Boom. The explosion sounded quickly, but it was immediately covered by other explosions around. More and more mist ninjas joined the battle, and the companions left in the camp could no longer resist. We are surrounded. The man from the Hyuga family replied in an almost trembling voice. How is it possible? His companion immediately expressed his disbelief and danced wildly to block the rain of ninja tools. I'm not talking nonsense. There are countless mist hidden teams pouring in from all directions. A large encirclement has been formed, completely surrounding our camp. The man from the Hyuga family replied in a mournful voice. Then what are you still standing here for? His companion was so angry that he kicked him to the ground and said angrily, why don't you report the situation to the headquarters? Ask them to send troops to support us. Oh. After being kicked hard by him, the man from the Hyuga family finally came to his senses. It was not the moment of complete despair yet, so he immediately rolled and crawled to the headquarters. When he hurried to the entrance of the headquarters, he happened to meet another member of the clan. Did you find it too? The man asked him in fear. Yeah. He nodded, without saying much, and immediately lifted the curtain, and took the lead, to walk into the headquarters tent. Seeing 2 Hyuga clan members entering the tent, one of them frowned and asked, "Didn't we arrange for you to monitor the situation around the camp at any time? What are you doing here?" The 2 Hyuga clan members looked at each other, and no one spoke first. Because the main camp was surrounded, they, a group of perception-type ninjas, had an unshakable responsibility. As if they understood that they couldn't escape after all. After a brief silence, the first one who came in said, "Report to the adults. Our camp has been surrounded by the Miss Ninjas." Hearing this, the other people in the tent were also stunned, and it took a long time for them to recover. One of them immediately flipped the documents on the table, and pointed at the 2 people and cursed, "What have you been doing? Are those eyes useless? You only realized something was wrong when you were surrounded. You are just bastards." If it weren't for the 2 people reporting the news, he would have thought that it was just a routine practice of the Mist Hidden Village to conduct tentative harassment. Okay. Things have come to this, and there is no point in getting angry. Behind the desk, another person patted his shoulder, looked at the 2 Hyuga tribesmen and asked, "Aren't you always monitoring the surrounding situation? How come you only realized something was wrong after being surrounded?" A Hyuga tribesman lowered his head and said, "Earlier, we didn't find any signs of a large Kirigakure army moving here, but we sporadically found a few small teams bypassing our defense line. I guess they should have used this scattered and roundabout way to avoid our surveillance, and then formed a large encirclement to shrink inward. By the time we found out, it was too late." The man asked again, "How many people are coming?" The Hyuga tribesman whispered back, "Not many, but there are still nearly 500 people. I know, you can go down." The man waved his hand at the 2 people. Hearing this, the 2 Hyuga tribesmen fled out of the command tent like rabbits, as if they had been pardoned. Listening to the roar of the explosion outside, one of them frowned and said, "Although 500 enemies will not wipe us out, we can't stop them with the troops in our camp alone. Plus, there are still many wounded in the camp. If they rush in and wreak havoc, I'm afraid the losses will be very heavy. I suggest that we transfer some troops back to support." Another person next to him shook his head and sighed, "If you can't catch up in one step, you will miss every step. The Kirigakure has spent so much effort to divert our main force and then sent troops to make a roundabout attack. They must have expected that we will transfer troops back to support. So, now it's not whether we decide to transfer troops back to support, but whether our troops can be transferred back. According to what you said, we don't need to transfer troops back." The man in front raised his eyebrows. "I didn't say that." He rolled his eyes at his companion and continued, "What I mean is that we can't put all our hopes on sending troops back for reinforcement and just think about resisting Kirigakure's surprise attack. Instead, we should think about what Kirigakure's purpose is in making this move. Our most important task is to obstruct their goal of action this time." Another person thought for a while, pinched his chin, and tried to ask, aren't they trying to use some decapitation tactics? It is impossible for Kirigakure to completely destroy their main camp with 500 troops, and if he wants to achieve certain results with this limited force, the only thing he can think of now is decapitation. The other 2 nodded slightly after hearing this. One person said, "Decapitation is not impossible. If we can use these 500 troops to kill our 3 commanders, destroy our command system, cause chaos on the battlefield, and break through our defense line in one fell swoop, it is also a successful tactic." Hearing this, the other 2 were all silent. After 3 breaths, one person whispered, "Although it is definitely difficult to transfer troops back, we should pass on the transfer order as soon as possible. The sooner the reinforcement come back, the sooner the surprise attack force of Kirigakure will retreat, and the safer we will be." After that, he snapped his fingers, and 3 Konoha ninjas wearing white raccoon cat masks appeared in the big tent. They were the members of the Anbu who were responsible for protecting their 3 commanders. "You 3, hurry to the Uchiha camp and draw 1,000 troops from the main force to support." He solemnly instructed the 3 people, and quickly wrote 3 transfer orders, and handed them over. The outside has been surrounded by Kirigakure ninjas, and even with the skills of the Anbu, it is probably difficult to break through the siege. 3 transfer orders. 3 people are to increase the probability of breaking through. If all 3 died in the breakout, there would be nothing that can be done. However, this probability is estimated to be small. A step back, even if all 3 died, the reinforcement will still come back, but without their active request for help. They have to wait until the main force finds something wrong before turning back, which will take longer. The possibility of accidents is also higher. No one wants to entrust their fates to the unknown. Chapter 36 Target. As the distance between them and the main camp of Konoha shortened, Qishuang found that more and more mist ninja teams were also heading towards the main camp of Konoha. It seems that the Hyuga clan is doomed this time. He sighed softly. From the current situation, he could roughly infer that many of the originally scattered mist ninja teams were slowly forming a siege to completely surround the Konoha camp. The Hyuga clan had no way to escape. Hearing his sigh, King once again loudly reminded the 3 subordinates, "You must keep your eyes open and watch carefully. Don't let that guy run away." In just a blink of an eye, the main camp of Konoha was already in sight. Explosions came one after another. The outer defenses had been breached by the surprise attack troops, and the fortifications had become a ruin. Many mist ninjas rushed in. However, most of them were entangled by the defending Konoha ninjas, and they could not get away to find their targets for a while. It seems that these Konoha ninjas have no ability. "We broke through the defense so quickly," Meditarumi mocked unceremoniously. From the moment the explosion started, less than 10 minutes had passed, and the mist ninja had already rushed into the Konoha camp, which made her think that Konoha was incompetent. He took out a few kunai and shot dead to Konoha ninjas who were concentrating on fighting the mist ninjas. King solemnly reminded Ming, "You must not underestimate the Konoha ninjas. If we hadn't transferred the main force away from them this time, the defense of their camp would never have been so easy for us to break through. If you underestimate your opponent too much on the battlefield, you may die at any time." As he said that, he turned his head and looked at Qishuang meaningfully. Seeing King's meaningful eyes, Qishuang knew that the other party was talking about him killing the 2 Konoha Chunins. But he was not the kind of person who would show off, so he could only touch his nose awkwardly, avoid the other party's sight, and didn't dare to say a word. On the other side, after hearing the leader's reprimand, Meditarumi pouted and muttered, alright, I got it." She had heard the captain say this many times, and her ears were already calloused, so she was a little impatient. Then, landing next to the 2 rescued fellow villagers, King asked them seriously, "Have you seen any traces of the target?" In order to prevent the Konoha ninjas from alerting them and increasing the difficulty of the mission, they did not directly mention words related to the Hyuga, but only referred to them as a target. As for the 3 people of Qishuang, when they landed, they took a defensive posture, ready to deal with the Konoha ninjas that appeared at any time. Unfortunately, the Konoha ninjas around them all had their own opponents to deal with, and no one had the extra energy to provoke their team. "We didn't see it." The 2 mist ninjas shook their heads, both saying they didn't know. "Is it really not that simple?" King sighed secretly. Although he knew that the whereabouts of the Hyuga clan could not be obtained so easily, he still couldn't help but want to ask. Then, he continued to ask expressionlessly, "Do you know where their base is?" One person still shook his head. The other thought for a moment, pointed to the southeast, and tentatively said, "I saw many Kirigakure companions go there before. Maybe the target space is in that direction." "Thank you." King nodded and thanked him, and then gestured to the 3 junior subordinates, "Let's go." Then, the 3 put away their defensive postures, understood and followed the leader to the southeast. On the other side, in a corner of the Konoha camp, a middle-aged man pinched the neck of a Kirigakure ninja, pressed him to the ground, and asked sternly, "Tell me, what is your goal in raiding our main camp?" Next to him, there were several masked and boot guards guarding the surroundings. "Come with me, to hell. I will tell you again." The man spit out blood and replied with a miserable smile, "Oh no, it's a detonating tag." Seeing the other party's extremely strange smile, the Konoha ninja realized that a stack of detonating tags on the other party's right hand had already burned. "Die with me." At this moment, the dying mist ninja suddenly jumped up and grabbed one of the opponent's thighs with his other left hand. Unfortunately, he was still a step slower, and the thigh grabbed by his left hand had turned into a wooden stake. Substitution technique? He was stunned for a moment. Boom. At this moment, the detonating tag exploded. The red flames immediately submerged him, and the huge impact mixed with smoke and yellow soil to form a huge mushroom cloud. However, in this chaotic battlefield, the mushroom clouds produced by the explosions were one after another, and the one in the corner of the camp was inconspicuous. Cough cough cough. After the impact dissipated, a cough came from a ruin next to it, and then half a figure emerged. It was the middle-aged ninja who had just interrogated the Miss Ninja. Although he used the substitution technique to escape a distance in time and did not face the explosion directly, he was still partially impacted and buried by the collapsed tent. My lord, are you okay? A wounded Anbu member, regardless of his own pain, dug him out of the ruins. Because that man was one of the highest commanders here, there must be no loss. Then, several other Anbu members rushed out from the surrounding ruins and came forward to help. Cough cough cough. After coughing a few more times, the commander who was dug out said to himself with a shabby face, "It seems that I'm really old. This reaction speed is not as fast as before." Then, he glanced at the Anbu guards and found that everyone was injured, and he couldn't help but feel a little more guilty. If he hadn't questioned the Mist Ninja in close range, several guards would not have surrounded him to protect him, and finally were affected by the sudden explosion. "How are you guys injured?" he asked with concern. "If the lord is fine, we are fine." An Anbu member wearing a broken mask replied very politely. The half of his face exposed outside the mask was already covered in blood and dust. Just when he wanted to say something else, another scarred Anbu member suddenly appeared in front of him using the flash body technique. "Hello, sir." The man knelt down and saluted. "If you have anything to say, tell me now." He waved his hand and ordered immediately. The situation was critical at the moment, and he was not at all impressed by these courtesies from his subordinates. According to our investigation, the Kirigakure ninjas who came for a surprise attack are gathering at the Hyuga clan's base. It seems that their target should be the Hyuga clan. The man replied loudly. Hyuga clan. The middle-aged commander fell into deep thought after hearing this. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something and exclaimed, "Oh no, their target is the current Hyuga clan. I wrote it a bit like a group portrait." Chapter 37 Struggle. If there is anyone or anything in the Hyuga clan's camp that is worth the Kirigakure's trouble to come and take action, it can only be the current Hyuga clan leader. The Hyuga clan is different from the famous Uchiha clan in Konoha. They implement the system of main and branch clans. The main clan only has one person in each generation, who serves as the head of the clan and controls the life and death of all the branch clans through the bird in a cage seal. If the Hyuga clan leader dies or is captured, the Hyuga clan will inevitably be in chaos. It is very different from the Uchiha clan's casual election system. Even if the clan leader is lost, the Uchiha clan can still quickly elect another one, and it will not have much impact. "Hurry up and take me to the other two commanders," the middle-aged commander shouted to several subordinates. Not long after, the three commanders of Konoha gathered again in a secluded corner. Their respective guards quietly hid aside and guarded the surroundings. "Look at your embarrassed appearance. I'm a little worried that you will die in Kirigakure's surprise attack this time," one of them said to the other two commanders jokingly. "Aren't you also injured? What qualifications do you have to criticize us?" The second person counterattacked without any hesitation. "Okay, stop arguing. I have something to say." The third person hurriedly stopped the two people who wanted to quarrel again, and continued. "The members of the Anbu found that those Kirigakure ninjas were gathering at the former Hyuga clan's base. I suspect their target is the current Hyuga clan." Hyuga clan. The second person frowned and whispered, "Could it be that they want to attack the Hyuga clan and thus defeat the Hyuga clan and change the current situation? This possibility is very high." The third person nodded in agreement. "Then, let's take people to support him," the second person said, and was about to leave. "Wait." The first person called him and said in a complicated way, "From the current situation, it seems that Kirigakure's target is this Hyuga clan leader, but it is not ruled out that they have the intention to take advantage of the situation to eliminate the three of us." If the whereabouts of the three of us are completely exposed to the Kirigakure surprise attack force, do you think they will choose to kill the three of us first? Or choose to kill the Hyuga clan first? Hearing this, the second person's face suddenly became bitter. There is no need to think about it. If Kirigakure has the opportunity to kill their three commanders, the other party will not be polite at all. Then, we can send some people to support, right? He suggested in a low voice. The first person shook his head and continued, the camp is in chaos now. The few people around us can barely protect ourselves. There is no extra power to rescue the Hyuga clan. This is not okay. That is not okay. Then why did you ask us to come? After being rejected again, the second person was a little angry. Then, the third person also cast a puzzled look at his companion. The first person said slowly and expressionlessly, I asked you to come here just to remind you that when you receive a request for help from the Hyuga family later, don't be stupid enough to rush in and die. Not only that, but you must also stay away from the area where the Hyuga family is stationed. At this moment, a figure turned out from the corner of a ruin next to them. The three of them suddenly discovered that it was a member of the Hyuga clan. The veins in the corners of his eyes bulged, and he activated the inside power of his Byakugan and rushed over here in a hurry. It seemed that his target was the three of them. When the Hyuga clan member was less than 5 meters away from the three commanders, 3 masked Anbu members suddenly appeared and stopped him. Let him come over. The second person immediately opened his mouth and gestured. Then, the Anbu guards let him go and let him come to the 3 commanders panting. What do you want? Friend of the Hyuga family. The first person asked first. He was smiling and looked kind, without any ruthlessness just now. The Hyuga clan member gasped and said, reporting to the 3 commanders. Our clan leader is surrounded. Please send someone to support us. Very good, I got it. We will send someone to support us in a while. You go back to help. The first person smiled and dismissed. Really? The Hyuga clan member confirmed again. He felt that the commander-in-chief agreed too easily, and something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out why. The other 2 commanders next to him watched all this silently, because they knew in their hearts that their companions were just comforting this Hyuga clan member. Yes, I will. The first person smiled and nodded, put his hands on the shoulders of the Hyuga clan member, and slowly turned him over. At the moment, when the Hyuga clan member turned around completely, he raised his hands and immediately grabbed the other's chin and the back of his head, and quickly twisted his hands to both sides. With a click, the Hyuga clan member's neck was broken, and he died immediately. The incident happened too suddenly. Neither the Anbu guards around nor the other 2 commanders expected him to do such a thing. When everyone came to their senses, the color in the eyes of the Hyuga family man had disappeared. What did you do? The second person grabbed his shoulder and asked loudly. Even the third person, who rarely spoke, frowned and looked at his companion with a hint of defensiveness. The first person slapped his companion's hand on his shoulder and said coldly, you two know that it is impossible for us to send people to support, so why give him this false hope? But even so, you shouldn't kill him. The second person was very puzzled. He couldn't accept this explanation. The first person glanced at him and sneered. If he brought back the news that we would send people to support, but we didn't send anyone to support, how would we explain to the Hyuga clan afterwards? Hearing this, the second and third people remained silent. Instead of this, it is better to let him die in the surprise attack of Kirigakure. If someone asks about it in the future, we can also say that we have never received any request for help from the Hyuga family. The first person continued expressionlessly and found an excuse for the death of the Hyuga clan member in front of him. Seeing that the second person was still unwilling to give up, he continued, this kid has discovered our whereabouts. If he is caught by the Kirigakure people and is besieged, then we are doomed. Hearing this, the third person sighed heavily and said, what are you going to do next? The first person looked at the southeast of the camp, where the Hyuga clan was stationed, and said meaningfully, the Byakugan's insight range is too wide. They can easily find the location of the 3 of us. If they don't know what's good for them, and send people to ask for help again, our whereabouts can't be hidden at all. So, we have to take advantage of the Kirigakure's attention on the Hyuga family, break out of the camp, and join up with the main force. On the one hand, we can get rid of the dangerous tail of the Hyuga main family, and on the other hand, we can avoid their requests for help. As he said, he glanced at the second person with a face full of resentment, and said playfully, "It also saves you two from being reluctant the next time I kill someone. If we leave, what about the people in the camp?" The third person asked with mixed feelings. The first person said disdainfully, "With the current surprise attack force of Kirigakure, it is impossible to destroy our camp. The only ones in real danger are the three of us, and the Hyuga clan. Just wait for the reinforcement to come back, or when they achieve their goal, these Kirigakure ninjas will naturally retreat. Well, let's go. If we delay, something bad will happen." The third person nodded, and the meaning was very clear. Upon hearing this, the second person looked at the two of them deeply, wanting to say something, but he couldn't say it, always feeling a blockage in his chest. "I have no choice, I'm also thinking about the overall situation." He could only comfort himself in his heart. First of all, congratulations to this book for welcoming its first reward, and also the first apprentice level fan, Plump Breast Pigeon, 2019.3.2. By the way, pigeon meat has this effect? This is the first time I've heard of it. Chapter 38 Enlightenment. On the other side, Qishuang and others, led by King, moved towards the direction where many mist ninjas gathered. Although there were many Konoha ninjas who came out to stop them along the way, they were quickly solved by the four people and could not stop their progress at all. Therefore, Qishuang also roughly understood that the combat capability of the new team he was in was far stronger than the team he was in before. No wonder they were sent by the superiors to perform such a high-intensity combat mission. Take the leader King for example. The chakra aura on his body was obviously stronger than Kamiyamu, and it was estimated that he was not far from being a Jonin. The rest of his teammates, Zabuza and Meitarumi, graduated a year earlier than him. In other words, they had been on the battlefield for a year earlier than him. Especially the so-called demon man Zabuza, who killed people without blinking an eye, just like killing chickens, without any fluctuations. Even the seemingly weak and graceful little girl, Meitarumi, was very skilled in cutting throats, far beyond the reach of a rookie like him who had just been on the front line for a few months. He was the weakest member of the entire team. Although Qishuang had been forced to kill 2 people when he encountered Uchihate's team before, he was a modern man who had been influenced by civilization after all, and was still not used to this barbaric battlefield, where human life was regarded as worthless. He still found it difficult to accept killing, and could not bring himself to do it. Each time he only severely injured his opponent, leaving the fatal blow to the other 3. After helping to finish the fight a few times, the other few people seemed to have seen something. Zabuza still went his own way and ignored him. King frowned and kindly reminded, "Kit, this is a battlefield. If you are not careful, the next person to die will be you. You showed mercy to them, but others may not show mercy to you. If you don't want to die young, put away that ridiculous sympathy of yours." Qishuang nodded and smiled bitterly. "I know this is not right, but I just can't harden my heart and kill them completely. I always feel that there is an indelible sense of guilt in my heart." Hearing this, King looked at him playfully and said meaningfully, "Kit, from the moment you officially became a ninja, you have already crossed the gate of hell. Do you still think that ninja is a compassionate profession?" As he said, he pointed to the corpses lying on the ground and said solemnly, "Don't think about whether it is a sin or not. We have been plagued by sin for a long time. Captain King is right, little brother." Next to him, Meitarumi hooked her arm around Qishuang's neck, pulled him over, and joked, "Although none of these people were killed directly by you, you are responsible for the death of each of them. Your hands are already covered in blood. Stop showing that disgusting false mercy." Qishuang's heart tightened when he heard this. He slowly raised his hands and saw that there was still blood between his fingers. In each bloodstain, there seemed to be wronged souls crying and questioning his hypocrisy. At this moment, he felt that the explosions, fighting, and crying around him were never so clear in his ears. In the originally turbid air, he seemed to smell a strange smell that was getting stronger and stronger. He knew that it was the smell of blood that he had been avoiding accepting, the smell of sin. "Since my hands are already full of sins, let me be unforgivable." He smiled helplessly. The road of ninja can no longer be turned back. If you don't want to die yourself, you can only let others die. With the change of his thinking, at this moment, his uneasy heart seemed to have found a real home, and his soul seemed to have been baptized. He felt like he had truly integrated into this world. He became a real ninja. Very good, very good. Seeing the change in the eyes of the new team member, King nodded and said to the other two subordinates, "Wait a minute, if there is a guy who has his last breath left, leave it to him to deal with." "Yes." Zabuza nodded without saying much. "Don't worry, leave it to me." After hearing this, Meditarumi immediately patted her chest and said excitedly, "It's not easy to get such an interesting little brother. I will definitely try my best to take care of him." Then, as if she had found a new toy, she shouted to the little boy next to her in a playful manner, "Right, little brother Qishuang." Qishuang untied her little arm that was hooked around her neck and rolled her eyes at the little girl, who was close at hand, and said, "We are classmates of the same period. You may not be older than me, right? Little Ming classmate." He emphasized the word little. Meditarumi hugged her arms tightly and said with a pout, "I don't care. I'm better than you. I graduated before you, and I went to the battlefield before you. I'm your senior, and I should be your sister." Hearing this, Zabuza twitched his mouth and looked a little ugly, as if he thought of something unpleasant in the past. Nana Frost immediately sank his face and didn't dare to argue anymore, because he knew that if he continued to argue, he would be beaten. Last night, he had seen Zabuza get beaten for arguing with Meditarumi over a trivial matter. He was not Meditarumi's opponent, and he would definitely be beaten unilaterally. He didn't have the tendency to be abused, so he had to remain silent. King, who was standing next to him, was also overwhelmed when he saw this, so he had to wave his hand and remind him, "Don't argue. There are more and more Konoha ninjas around here. Cheer up." It seemed that, because the Kirigakure ninjas gathered here, most of the Konoha ninjas also gathered here to meet the enemy. The further they went inside, the more intense the battle became. Explosions could be seen everywhere, and from time to time a few kunai flew from a certain direction, but it was unclear whether they were from the enemy or their own people. Just as Qishuang and the others were about to rush into the core area of the battle between the two sides, 4 bloody Konoha ninjas rushed out from the side and blocked their way forward. Looking at their panting appearance, they should have just experienced a bloody battle. Kill these Kirigakure bastards. The leading man's eyes were all white, and veins bulged in the corners of his eyes. He should be a member of the Hyuga clan. He shouted and immediately led the way. King, who was walking at the front of the team, did not hesitate at all. His fingers flew, and he immediately formed a group of seals. Water style, iron cannon bomb. He took a deep breath, his chest bulged high, and then he spit out a water ball towards the 4 people opposite. The water ball swelled against the wind, and in just a moment, it became the size of a wash basin. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of several Konoha ninjas. "Disperse." The leading Hyuga clan member shouted, and the other 3 immediately dispersed. With a loud bang, the blue water ball the size of a wash basin immediately fell on the open ground, leaving a large pit with a diameter of about 1 meter. Speaking of killing, I remembered the first time I killed a chicken. I was very nervous, and I cut it several times before it bled. Chapter 39 Girl. Qishuang knew that it was a high pressure water ball. Only a highly compressed water ball could produce such an effect. If it hit a person directly, it would definitely result in broken bones and tendons. The 4 Konoha ninjas on the opposite side were very tacit. They dodged the water ball shot by King and immediately launched a close-range surprise attack. They stopped Qishuang and separated them one by one. "You bunch of hateful mist ninjas, don't think about leaving alive today." One of them cursed at Zabuza. Zabuza lowered his voice and said, "Then, it depends on how capable you are." Before he finished speaking, he flashed in front of his opponent, accompanied by a silver light. He drew out his short sword and slashed it down immediately. Ding. A crisp collision sound came, but it was the Konoha ninja who blocked Zabuza's short sword with a kunai. "You are indeed very fast, and you are also considered the best among the genin, but unfortunately, you met me." The Konoha man separated Zabuza's short sword with one blow, forcing him to retreat, and shouted loudly, "The gap between Chunin and Genin is enough to make you despair." That's not necessarily true. Zabuza shook his head lightly, unmoved, and then picked up the short sword and rushed forward again. The leading Konoha ninja stood in front of King, glanced at the people next to him, and said lightly, "Aren't you worried about the three little guys?" As he said that, he took 2 steps lightly, focusing most of his attention on the opponent, looking for an opportunity to attack. King immediately threw Tsukune and replied with a fake smile, "As long as I kill you, I will naturally have enough time to go back and rescue the 3 of them." Facing the Kune thrown by the opponent, the Hyuga family man was not afraid at all and immediately moved the chakra to the palm of his hand, ready to block the Tsukune with a soft fist. Oh no, there's an explosive tag. He hit one of the Kune with his palm, and then he saw clearly that there was an explosive tag wrapped around the handle of the flying Kune. Soft fist technique. 8 diagrams palm to restore heaven without any hesitation. He twisted his waist and spun on the spot, releasing chakra from the acupuncture points all over his body, turning it into a light blue ball of light with a diameter of more than 2 meters. Boom. At the moment the ball of light appeared, 2 explosions came in succession, and the red flames and grey-black smoke completely covered the ball of light. Is it really not that easy? Seeing the opponent unscathed after the smoke screen dispersed, King sighed. Then, the ninja of the Hyuga family rushed up in one step and launched a continuous offensive. Knowing that the soft fist of the Hyuga family has the ability to seal chakra, King did not dare to take it head on. While dodging, he looked for an opportunity to counterattack. What a lovely little girl. It's a pity that she will die in my hands today. On the other side, a Konoha ninja looked at the beautiful Terumi Medi and sighed. Then, "Big brother, can you not kill me? Spare me?" the little girl asked weakly. Seeing his opponent's pitiful appearance, the man from Konoha could not help but feel soft-hearted, and his eyes were a little vague. He seemed to see his little sister waiting for him to come home at the door of the village of Konoha. Seeing his opponent's actions sluggish and distracted, Terumi was also a little surprised. She was just following his words to gain some sympathy, weaken his defense, and then wait for an opportunity to attack. Unexpectedly, the effect was surprisingly good. Although she was surprised, she did not hesitate at all. She immediately formed a set of hand seals quickly, and then puffed up her cheeks and spit out a mouthful of milky white sticky substance at her opponent. After all, the opportunity was fleeting. If she missed this opportunity, she didn't know if she would have a chance to defeat the opponent. Dissolving escape. Dissolving monster technique. The mouthful of milky white sticky substance quickly opened in the air, like a big blanket, swaying and covering the opponent's head. Be careful. Seeing this scene, the Hyuga ninja, who had no time to withdraw to support, shouted a warning. Hearing his companion's voice, the man immediately came to his senses and immediately saw the milky white blanket falling from the air. He immediately retreated in a hurry, but unfortunately his action was still a bit too slow. The big blanket fell on his shoulders and covered half of his body along his arms. Although he didn't know what the effect of these sticky things was, he didn't dare to be careless and immediately struggled to break free from it. At this moment, he noticed a strange feeling coming from the half of his body that was covered. First it was a little bit of numbness and itching, and then the numbness and itching quickly increased and turned into a tingling pain, a deep-rooted tingling pain. It hurt so much that he didn't even have the strength to struggle, and his legs immediately softened, and he collapsed to the ground. What made him even more terrified was that the half of his body that was covered was gradually out of his perception, as if it didn't exist. What was left for him was only pain. An indescribable pain. He could do nothing except wail. Seeing this scene, the other 3 Konoha ninjas were all panicked. Judging from the current situation, the companion was already doomed. They didn't understand what happened, because things changed too suddenly. From the time the big blanket fell to the ground, it took only a few breaths. They didn't even react, and the battle over there was already a foregone conclusion. Helplessly, they had to step up their offensive, hoping to solve the opponent in advance, when the little girl joined their battle. "Asshole, you, what on earth did you, do to me, The Konoha ninja who fell to the ground wailed in pain and struggled again, trying to get rid of the big blanket. Unfortunately, the big blanket looked soft, but it was extremely sticky. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't get rid of its bondage. Instead, He completely consumed the last bit of strength he had accumulated with great difficulty, and even had no strength to wail. Do you want to know what this is? Meditarumi walked up to her opponent leisurely, slowly squatted down, pointed at the big blanket covering him, and asked jokingly. The man opened his mouth, but the severe pain in his body had taken away all his strength, and he didn't even have the strength to speak. He could only look at the little girl who was close at hand, hoping to get a satisfactory explanation. Even the 3 Konoha ninjas not far away slowed down their offensive and pricked up their ears, wanting to find out the truth about the terrifying big blanket. It is actually. Before she finished speaking, Meditarumi smiled sweetly and cut the man's throat with a kunai in an instant. This caught the 3 people around him off guard. Do you really think I'm stupid? A bunch of idiots. Meditarumi restrained her smile, spat at the man on the ground fiercely, and then glanced at the 3 people sarcastically. How could she not know what the man was thinking? I just wanted to play a pitiful role, find out the secret of her ninjutsu, and then make the final contribution to the rest of the partners to deal with her. There are many factors that affect the outcome of the battle. If you lose your concentration, you may die. There are other things that I need to explain, which will be put later. Chapter 40 Slip. I didn't expect that you are so cute, but you are so cruel. Seeing his companion dead, a Konoha ninja pushed his opponent away, got a breath, and shouted to Terumi Mei. I'm a ninja, a Kirigakure ninja. Just because I'm cute, I can't kill people. What kind of logic is this? What's more, as a Kirigakure ninja, isn't it natural for me to kill you? A group of hostile Konoha ninjas. Terumi Mei looked at him sarcastically and quietly scanned the whole scene, looking for the next target to attack. Hearing this, the 3 Konoha ninjas were speechless. Originally, they felt that it was a bit inappropriate for such a cute girl to smile and do such a cruel thing as killing. But after hearing the other party's position, they clearly realized that the child was not only a cute girl, but also a Kirigakure ninja. They were their enemies. The kind of people who could only survive on both sides. Killing people was natural. It was just that they couldn't accept the fact that their companion died at the hands of such a cute girl. On the other side, Nana Frost, who was fighting with the Konoha ninja, also saw the process of Terumi Mei solving the opponent. Although he was deeply moved by the success of Terumi Mei's honey trap, this was the innate advantage of being a cute girl, and no matter how much he envied her, it was useless. What made him most depressed was that the Konoha ninja actually fell for it. He was actually in a trance because of a 10-year-old girl. If Terumi Mei had already grown up and possessed the kind of peerless beauty when she appeared in the original work, he would not doubt her charm at all. But now Terumi Mei was only about 10 years old and she was just a cute little girl. He really didn't think that such a Terumi Mei could have any charm to make an adult male in a trance. Could it be that the guy is actually a lol to control? Nana Frost couldn't help but guess maliciously. Then, he suppressed the distracting thoughts in his heart, held a kunai, and started another confrontation with his opponent. Because this place has become a chaotic battlefield, and new enemies may appear at any time. In order to ensure that he is always able to fight the enemy, he must control the consumption of chakra. In addition, his ninjutsu is only half-baked, and it is difficult to kill with one blow, so he did not use ninjutsu easily, and only planned to fight with physical skills. Perhaps because he had experienced many hard battles before, and consumed a lot of energy, the man from Konoha took the same countermeasures as him, and did not release ninjutsu easily, and only fought with him with physical skills. It's a pity that, because he had experienced a big battle earlier, the man was panting, and his steps were weak, and his strength and speed were not much stronger than him. Originally, with an adult's physique, fighting with a 10-year-old child with physical skills should be a one-sided situation, but now it is only suppressing Nana Qishuang. It is a long way to end the battle completely. Clang! The crisp sound of the collision of kunai echoed in the air. Qishuang took advantage of the collision force and took 2 steps back, taunting the man. You are going to die. The Konoha ninja glanced cautiously at the little girl, who was waiting for an opportunity not far away, and said unwillingly, when she attacks, it will be the time for me to take you to hell. Since the death of the first companion, the little girl has been standing in the field without any movement. but everyone knows that the opponent is just waiting for an opportunity to attack, waiting for an opportunity to kill them with one blow. In other words, when the little girl attacks again, it will be the time for their second companion to die. This is also one of the reasons why they slowed down their offensive and did not dare to attack with all their strength to stalemate with the 3 people from Kirigakure, because in that case, it is easy to make irreparable mistakes. The result of that, there can only be one way to die. You want to die with me? I don't think you have such a chance. Qishuang shook her index finger at the man. Suddenly, the corner of his eyes fell on the kunai, and he had an idea in his mind, and he said in surprise, "Oh, the blade of this kunai is a bit blunt. Wait for me to change it before fighting you." As he said that, he was cautious and alert to the man, while reaching out his other hand to touch the kunai in the ninja bag on his waist. Just when Nanashin was about to change the kunai in his hand, the Konoha ninja on the opposite side was very alert. Although there was nothing wrong with changing weapons, as a veteran on the battlefield, he always felt that there was something strange about it. It's always better to be cautious. At this moment, he saw that the little boy on the opposite side took out a new kunai, and an accident occurred in the process of preparing to switch to the other dominant hand. Perhaps it was because he was a little nervous when he saw such a battlefield for the first time, or because his palms were stained with sweat from the previous physical battle. The other party did not hold the new kunai firmly, and it accidentally slipped from his palm. "Ah, my kunai." The little boy seemed to be a little surprised, and he screamed, instinctively moved his eyes away from him, and hurriedly lowered his head to grab the kunai. There is a flaw. He was delighted and rushed over immediately when his opponent lowered his head. On the other side, Terumi Mei, who was always paying attention to the battlefield, saw this scene and couldn't help but curse. This idiot, how can he not even hold a kunai? It fell, so what are you doing picking it up? She really didn't expect that Nanashuan would make such a fatal mistake when the situation was so good. But no matter how angry she was, she couldn't just stand by and watch. She stamped her feet and rushed over immediately, hoping to save Nanashuang's life. The other two Konoha ninjas found this situation and were secretly delighted. They immediately intensified their offensive and cut off the possibility of their opponents to rescue. Just as the Konoha man raised his kunai and chopped it down towards Nanashuang's head, a teasing voice came from his ear. "I was kidding you, idiot." Then, he saw the opponent in front of him roll over without raising his head, just avoiding his fatal blow. At the same time, he also saw that a detonating talisman was burning on the kunai that slipped from the little boy's hand. Arsehole. He kicked the ground without hesitation and was about to shoot back. Fortunately, he only used 70% of his strength before and did not launch an attack with all his strength. Otherwise there would be no possibility of escape at this moment. Boom. The detonating kunai exploded. The dazzling fire dazzled his eyes, and a strong impact rolled in with smoke and dust. In the end, he was unable to completely escape the range of the explosion, and was blown away by the impact of the explosion. Just as he flew out of the smoke, another cold voice came from his ear. "I told you, you're going to die." He opened his eyes reluctantly. Because of the stimulation of the fire at close range, his vision was still a little blurry, but he could still see the thin figure of the little boy chasing him from the side. I feel that this kind of low-end game is more of a test of wisdom. Because the level is not high, the skills are not many, and when fighting, it depends more on the formulation of tactics. It hurts my brain when writing it. Chapter 41, Dissolution. Water style. Water wave. Nana Frost immediately puffed up her cheeks and sprayed a water column as thick as a bowl at the opponent, who was ejected from the smoke. The Konoha man saw the incoming water style ninjutsu, but he was ejected by the aftermath of the explosion at this moment. His vision was blurred, his limbs were numb, and he had no time to dodge. Seeing that the water column as thick as a bowl was approaching him, it immediately hit his chest and pushed his body, which was about to fall to the ground, out again. Terumi Mei, who was rushing over to rescue, was stunned by the sudden reversal of the situation and stopped involuntarily. It was not until then that she finally understood that Nana Frost's mistake was a trick to lure the enemy. "What are you doing there? Hurry up and do it." After knocking the opponent away with one blow, Nana Frost immediately interrupted the release of the ninjutsu and shouted loudly to the little girl on the other side, "You!" Hearing his scolding, Terumi Mei immediately came to her senses and was about to lose her temper, but she saw that the Konoha ninja who was knocked away was flying in her direction. There is no doubt that this is not a coincidence, but Qishuang's intention. This is to deliberately send that person flying over, giving her a chance to kill him with one blow. Although she was unhappy, she did not hesitate and quickly formed a set of hand seals, spitting out a mouthful of milky white mucus at the flying figure. Dissolving style, dissolving monster technique. The situation took a sharp turn for the worse, and the two Konoha ninjas who had been pestering Zabuza and Ao, not allowing them the opportunity to support, began to get anxious. Seeing that the mist-hidden kid was about to be killed after revealing a flaw, they did not expect that it was a trap, and the person who was about to die was their companion. Originally, they were not at an advantage with 3 against 4, and if another companion died, the outcome of their defeat would be irreversible. Therefore, they all tried desperately to break through the opponent's obstruction and save their companion's life. Unfortunately, how could Ao and Zabuza not see such a good opportunity and immediately used 12 points of strength to hold the two people back, not giving them any chance to rescue. They could only watch helplessly as a ball of mucus came out of the mouth of the cute yet scary little girl and turned into a milky white blanket again, fluttering towards the figure of his companion who was shooting backwards. At this moment, the Konoha ninja who was knocked away by Qishuang didn't even have the chance to use the substitution technique. In a trance, it was like a cannonball shot into the blanket. Unfortunately, the cannonball he turned into was limited in power and was not enough to penetrate the soft-looking blanket. Like a moth that crashed into a spider web, there was no chance of escape. As the skin came into contact with the mucus, a feeling of pain that penetrated into his bones surged into his heart, and he felt like he was melting. Until this moment, he finally understood why the companion who had been stained with the milky white mucus before screamed so miserably and so heartbreakingly. This was simply not a pain that a human could bear. Then, the blanket was like melted butter, flowing all over his body immediately, and he didn't even have the chance to scream in pain, and was wrapped tightly by it. It was like a cream puppet that had fallen to the ground and was melting. Is this the legendary corpse that has no bones left? Looking at the human figure that was getting smaller and smaller under the cream, Qishuang walked up quickly and threw a kunai in. The dark kunai fell on the milky white mucus, slowly emitting a puff of green smoke, just like an ice cube under the scorching sun, slowly melting into it. This was the dissolution escape used by Terumi Mei in the original work in his memory. A blood limit composed of the properties of water and soil chakra. It has extremely corrosive mucus and can also quickly condense into a hard solid. Even metal kunai cannot withstand its corrosion. Once a person is wrapped in such mucus, there is almost no possibility of survival, and it is a kind of death that leaves nothing behind. Why do you want to taste it too? Seeing Qishuang staring at the gradually solidifying mucus, Terumi Mei gently wiped off the milky white residue at the corner of her mouth. Then, as if he remembered something, a sly smile flashed across his face, and he flicked his finger, flicking the tiny bit of milky white at the tip of his finger. Qishuang, who was facing away from the little girl, heard what she said, and then noticed that something was approaching rapidly from behind, so he instinctively dodged to the side. With a hiss, a pill-sized milky white object hit his feet, and immediately wisps of green smoke came out. The ground was corroded into a thumb-sized pit. There was no doubt that it was a small ball of dissolving escape mucus. Fortunately, he instinctively avoided it. If he was hit by the small ball, although he would not be killed or seriously injured, his skin would definitely be torn. "What the hell are you doing?" He turned his head and shouted. "Nothing." Terumi turned her face away, pouted and muttered softly, "Who told you to yell at me just now?" Although her voice was very low, Qishuang still heard it clearly. It seems that she is angry with him. "You two, hurry up and help Zabuza, and make a quick decision." On the other side, King, who was fighting with his opponent, saw the two people's unhurried appearance and immediately gave orders. The longer they delay here, the higher the possibility of other Konoha ninjas appearing. They have more important tasks to deal with and cannot waste time here. As for him, except for Meditarumi, who is close to the strength of Chunin and can help a little, the other two are difficult to intervene. Instead of wasting energy here, it is better to concentrate the superior strength to deal with Zabuza's Chunin opponent, and then the four of them will besiege this Jonin level Hyuga clan member. Hearing his instructions, the Hyuga clan member immediately shouted to the only remaining companion, "Hurry up and leave, it will be too late if you don't leave now." "But, if I leave, what will you do?" the man replied with a little hesitation, after blocking Zabuza's slash. "If you don't want to leave, then don't leave." A cold voice came, and he looked carefully, only to see that the two Genin level Miss Ninjas, a man and a woman, rushed up from the left and right. Just this moment of hesitation, he no longer had the chance to escape. Life and death, only a thought away. "I thought you two would have a cup of afternoon tea before coming to support." Seeing the two finally coming, even the usually silent Zabuza complained. Then, the three surrounded the Konoha ninja in the middle and launched a fierce physical battle. It was a pity that the man was a Chunin and his strength was stronger than the three, but he had fought with others before and was not in good condition. At this moment, he was surrounded by the three people of Qishuang, and his hands were barely able to block the attacks of the three people, and he immediately fell into a disadvantage. It was even more impossible to make a seal. After only 10 rounds of fighting, there were 5 or 6 more scars on his body, and the situation became more and more critical. Not long after, he heard a cry of pain. But Zabuza seized the opportunity and stabbed him in the chest. "Welcome to invest in my new book. My last book took me 1,000,000 words to complete, so feel free to invest." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Mystery. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, the man clamped Zabuza's blade with one hand and said in disbelief, "How is it possible? How could I die in the hands of you three little brats?" Puff. Another muffled sound. He suddenly felt a sharp pain in his waist. It was another little boy who took advantage of his attention on the blade on his chest and stabbed his left waist with a kunai. "On this battlefield, anything is possible," Qishuang replied coldly, thrusting the kunai in a little more. "No, I won't accept it." The man's mouth was bleeding, and he glanced at the three people fiercely, as if he wanted to eat them alive, and shouted, "I want you to die with me." Qishuang immediately noticed that in the man's other hand, there was a stack of burning detonating talismans. "Not good, Zabuza, retreat," he exclaimed, let go of the kunai in his hand, and pulled the little boy next to him to retreat. Before he finished speaking, another childish female voice sounded beside his ear. "You'd better go to hell alone." Then, Nana Shuang saw Meditarumi kick the Konoha ninja in the chest, and Zabuza's blade immediately slipped out of the opponent's chest, and the man flew out like an arrow from a bow. Boom. Fire shot up into the sky, followed by smoke and explosions. Although Meditarumi kicked the opponent away, the three of them were still more than 3 meters away from the center of the explosion, and were immediately thrown into the ruins beside by the scorching air wave. No, on the other side, seeing the last companion being engulfed by the flames, the Hyuga clan ninja's eyes immediately turned red. However, no matter how heartbreaking he shouted, time cannot be reversed. The dead can never come back to life. At the moment, all he can do is to take advantage of the opportunity when the three little ghosts were blown away to quickly get away. It's too late. Maybe even he can't leave. The war can't stop because of the death of a few of them. He still wanted to stay useful and make the last contribution to Konoha and the Hyuga family instead of dying here in vain. Thinking of this, he suppressed the grief in his heart and was not afraid of exposing his flaws. He opened his hands at a very close distance from King. "You want to use special moves against me at such a close distance, you are simply courting death." Seeing that the opponent was wide open, King raised his kunai and stabbed his throat immediately. Soft fist technique bag whip arm rescue. Just as King's Kune was about to pierce the throat of the Konoha man, he suddenly felt a flash in front of his eyes. A light blue light filled his vision, and then a strong wind blew in his face, and a powerful force threw him out. In just a moment, he felt a sharp pain in his back. He knew that he had fallen to the ground. It was not until then that he could see clearly that the thing that threw him out was a light blue rotating light ball with a diameter of 2 meters. He quickly got up and spit out the dust he had just inhaled when he landed. He said depressedly, "Why is it this move again?" He had seen it used once before. Even the explosion of the detonating talisman at close range could not shake it at all. Its strong defensive ability was the only one he had ever seen in his life. Facing this move, he could say that he had no way to deal with it. Just as King was preparing to face the opponent's next round of attack, he saw that the man quickly interrupted the spell after bouncing him away and then fled from here without looking back. In a few blinks of an eye, he disappeared among the ruins. King was dumbfounded. He originally thought that the man was also a tough guy like the one who just blew himself up to die together, but he didn't expect that this would be the result. When he changed his mind, he was relieved. The opponent's 4-man team had already lost 3 people while they were all intact. With him in the front and the 3 little guys helping him, their chances of winning were as high as 9 layers. There was no point for the Hyuga clan ninja to stay and fight to the end. It would only be a meaningless sacrifice. Therefore, the other party's escape was not so difficult to understand. At this moment, there was a rustling sound from the ruins next to him. Then, he saw 3 familiar little figures rushing out of the ruins. "Are you 3 okay?" he asked with concern. "Ahem." Mediterumi patted the dust off her body, coughed a few times, and said with an unhappy face, "How can you be okay? Look at my clothes. They are so dirty. This is my last clean one." Hearing this, the 3 of Qishuang twitched their mouths. It turns out that compared to their own health, they care more about whether their clothes are clean or not. However, Mediterumi's indifferent attitude also proves that she is fine at all. Otherwise, she simply doesn't have the energy to care about her clothes. Then, King looked at the other 2 subordinates and said seriously, "What about you 2? It's okay." Zabuza shook his head and slowly wiped his short sword. The blood on it had not completely dried up. "I'm not seriously injured, but I feel a dull pain all over my body. I think I'll be fine in a while." Qishuang rubbed his shoulders and replied with a grin, "Well, since everything is fine, let's keep moving forward," King said slowly, looking at the direction where the explosions and shouts were the most intense. Then, he barely picked out a small path from the ruins and immediately rushed in with 3 small subordinates. After all, the deeper you go, the more intense the battle will be. If you jump directly over the ruins, you may be easily attacked by the enemy below. For safety reasons, he chose to run over on the ground. After walking a few steps, another ninja team came out from the corner in front of them, scaring them. A closer look showed that they were their own people from Kirigakure. "Hey, guys over there." King waved to his companions on the opposite side and asked loudly, "Have you found any trace of that person?" That person, of course, refers to the current Hyuga clan leader. Seeing his big greeting, the team on the opposite side slowly came over, and the leader said helplessly, "Not yet. We have searched the Hyuga family's base, but we haven't even seen the shadow of that person." Seeing that the 3 people on the opposite side were all wounded, it was obvious that they had experienced a lot of battles. Qishuang couldn't help but feel lucky for herself. They came a little later, just missed the strongest counterattack at the beginning of Konoha. Therefore, they didn't encounter any fierce battles along the way. Only when they fought with the Konoha team just now, it was really thrilling. "That's really a pity," King sighed. At this time, a huge red smoke screen rose in the southwest direction. Qishuang recognized it at a glance. It was their Kirigakure signal flare. Obviously, someone discovered something over there. From the position of the signal flare, it has already gone beyond the range of Konoha's main camp, right? How could someone send a signal over there? The leader of the team on the opposite side pinched his chin and muttered to himself. Could it be someone has discovered that guy's whereabouts? Qishuang interjected. "Seeking investment, collection, recommendation." Chapter 43, In the Forest. Huh. Hearing this voice, 6 pairs of eyes from the 2 teams fell on a little boy from Team King. Why are you looking at me? There's no flour on my face. Qishuang touched his nose and subconsciously took a step back. He was a little uncomfortable being stared at by so many people. It seems that there is another good seedling in your team, the leader on the opposite side said to King with a smile. King waved his hand and replied nonchalantly, no matter how good the seedling is, it is just a seedling. It will take a long time to grow into a big tree. And now, we don't have extra time for them to grow up safely. As for whether they grow up in the wind and rain, or are broken in the storm, it all depends on themselves. As he said that, he took a deep look at the 3 little subordinates behind him. Anyway, we don't have any clues about that person, so why not go over and take a look now? Maybe it's really like what that kid said, that guy has escaped from the camp. After that, the leader of the mist ninja on the opposite side immediately led his people away. They have searched a long circle here, but still haven't found any clues. At this time, there is a signal for help from the mist ninja outside the main camp of Konoha. It is very likely that the target has escaped from here. Follow us. Let's go and have a look together. King called out to the 3 small subordinates and looked at the team in front to chase. At the same time, many mist ninjas who were fighting with the Konoha ninjas in the main camp of Konoha also found the signal. Those who have solved their opponents or are searching for their targets immediately ran in the direction of the signal flare. As for those who are fighting, they also tried their best to get rid of their opponents and prepare to rush to help. After all, their target this time is the Hyuga clan, not the annihilation of the main camp of Konoha. Although they have transferred away from the main force of Konoha, their surprise attack force is still not at an advantage compared to the remaining troops of Konoha. The longer the time is delayed, the more disadvantageous it is for Kirigakure. Therefore, finding the target as soon as possible is their top priority. It would be a waste of energy to entangle with the Konoha ninjas here. There are many Konoha ninjas on the same road with them. Although they didn't know what these mist ninjas were going to do, they knew that, as long as the enemy was going to do it, they would try their best to destroy and stop it. Therefore, on the way of many mist ninjas rushing to help, many Konoha ninjas intercepted them, and even many Konoha ninjas chased them together. Along the way, corpses were everywhere, and there was another melee. After a long time, Team King and another mist ninja team joined forces, and finally they fought their way out of the Konoha main camp with difficulty. As they approached the location where the flare was launched, Qishuang and the others found that there were gradually more corpses and traces of battle on the road. There were both mist ninjas and Konoha. It seemed that the 2 sides had a very fierce battle here. It seems that the Hyuga clan is very likely to have really broken through from here. Looking at the bloodstains on the ground that had not yet dried, the leader of another mist ninja team said solemnly to King. King looked back at the many mist ninjas who came out of the Konoha main camp one after another and sighed. Maybe, if there were traces of the Hyuga clan in the Konoha main camp, the mist ninjas would definitely rush over, and there would definitely not be so many idle people coming out to check what was going on. Then, the possibility that the Hyuga clan had escaped from the Konoha main camp was very high. In a clearing somewhere in the dense forest, several Konoha ninjas protected a man with white pupils in the center, and were resting there. The man had gray hair, and looked about 50 years old, but his eyes were still bright, and he didn't look old at all. It was just that the mottled blood stains on his body stained a large area of white clothes red, and the rapidly rising and falling chest and the tiredness between his eyebrows made him look a little more tired. If Qishuang and the others were here, they would be able to recognize at a glance that this old man was the current Hyuga clan leader. A member of the Hyuga clan rolled his eyes, looked around, and immediately reported to him, "My lord, there are more and more Kirigakure ninjas chasing us from behind." Hearing this, the faces of several Konoha ninjas around him tightened, and they subconsciously clenched their kunai. However, they had experienced many battles before, and they were very tired at this moment. Even the hand holding the kunai was shaking involuntarily. No matter how much their master encouraged them, he couldn't stop the shaking of the hand. Glancing at the people who were barely cheering up, the Hyuga clan pretended to be calm and said, "How far are we from the main force of Konoha? According to our usual speed, we can meet them in about 10 minutes. The man lowered his head and replied, 10 minutes? Looking at the top of his head, the dense tree canopy that blocked the sunlight was left with only a few strands, and the tone of the Hyuga clan was a little complicated. If it were an ordinary day, these 10 minutes would not be a big deal. But now, they have been exhausted after many fierce battles, and fighting their way out of the siege. It has become a luxury to join the main force of Konoha within 10 minutes. Even if it takes 20 minutes, they may not arrive. What's more, there are a bunch of Kirigakure ninjas who are trying to kill him. These 10 minutes may be the last bit of time left for him. There is no possibility of escape. You all go. He waved his hand weakly at the several ninjas who were protecting him and fled here, and whispered, when they catch up later, I will be the last one to leave, and you all leave. The person they are looking for is me. As long as they find me, they will not deliberately entangle with you. At the beginning, facing the surprise attack of Kirigakure, he was still a little confused, but when he captured several Kirigakure ninjas for interrogation, he immediately got the information that Kirigakure came for him. So, he knew very well that, as long as he stayed, the others could survive. Hearing his words, some people quietly took back the kyune in their hands, secretly rejoicing. Some people gritted their teeth, with unwilling faces. After a short silence, a man came out and said solemnly, Sir, although I'm not a member of your Hyuga clan, I also know that you are the head of the Hyuga clan. If you die in battle, it will be a huge blow to the Hyuga clan. If you are captured alive, then. He did not continue to speak, but the meaning was very clear. Hearing this, a Hyuga clan member cursed him, you bastard. Forget it. The Hyuga clan immediately stopped the clan member who wanted to curse again, and said to everyone solemnly, the Hyuga clan will only die in battle, not be captured alive. He knew very well what the Hyuga clan, which controlled the life and death of the branch families through the bird in the cage, meant to Konoha. Once he was captured alive, it meant that the Hyuga clan was likely to be manipulated by a third party through him. Therefore, neither he, Hyuga, nor Konoha wanted him to be captured alive. He could only die in battle. It suddenly occurred to me that the experience of the Hyuga clan was a bit similar to the story of Guan Yu's defeat at Meicheng, giving a feeling of a hero's end. Chapter 44 Fish Eyes. The decision of the Hyuga clan made many people secretly relieved, but several Hyuga clan members nearby frowned. In the Hyuga clan, except for the main family and the next heir to the main family, the rest of the clan members are members of the branch family. They have been taught, since childhood, that their existence is to protect the safety of the main family. Although some clan members privately feel that such a fate is unfair, and have objections to the system of the main branch family, they will still unswervingly implement this rule to the end. At this moment, when the main family is at stake, they can't abandon the main family and escape alone. A Hyuga clan member immediately stood up. My lord. Don't say it. That's it. The Hyuga clan member shook his head gently, glanced at the 3 wounded clan members, and felt full of guilt. Among the group of ninjas protecting him, there were originally more than these 3 Hyuga clan members, but the others died on the way to protect him from breaking out. The remaining 3 were also seriously injured, and it was almost doubtful that a gust of wind could blow them down. Then, he seemed to remember something, and whispered to the 3 people, if you can escape this crisis, bring me a few words back. My lord, you said. Knowing that they could not change the will of the main family, the tone of the Hyuga clan members could not help but choke. The Hyuga clan sighed and continued, go back and tell Hiashi and Hisashi that the position of the main family is decided by the 2 of them. Who is the main family? Who is the branch? As a father, I have given them a fair chance to choose. No matter what the result is in the future, no party can complain. Knowing that the main family was telling the last words, the 3 Hyuga clan members could no longer suppress the sadness in their hearts, and tears wet their eyes. As if infected by the firm will of the Hyuga clan to die generously, the other Konoha ninjas could not help but hesitate about the idea of escaping alone. Suddenly, one person walked out of the queue and said to everyone, I have an idea that may allow the Hyuga clan to escape, but we will be more dangerous. Hearing this, everyone present cast a curious look. One person immediately said, you say. The person took a deep breath and said slowly, when the pursuers catch up, we'll use the transformation technique to become the appearance of the Hyuga clan, and then disperse and escape. It can not only disperse the pressure of the Hyuga clan, but also not delay our escape, but our chances of escape will be greatly reduced. Okay, let's use this method. One person immediately agreed. Then, as if they felt guilty about escaping alone, the Konoha ninjas agreed to this idea one after another. Thank you. Faced with the enthusiasm of the crowd, the Hyuga clan could not refuse, and he could only express his gratitude. Although this method could relieve a lot of his pressure, he knew clearly that even so, his chances of escape were still extremely slim. Therefore, his decision to fight to the death remained unchanged. Not long after, two mist ninja teams caught up with the Konoha people who were resting. However, the scene in front of them made them feel troubled. There were a dozen Konoha ninjas in the clearing in the forest. Each of them looked exactly the same as the Hyuga clan they were looking for. There was no doubt that a Konoha ninja had used the transformation technique to mix the real Hyuga clan in. He wanted to pass them off as real and let them escape. Disperse. Someone shouted, and a dozen Konoha ninjas scattered and ran in all directions. Not one of them was heading in the same direction. When the figures of a dozen Hyuga clan completely disappeared from their sight, the many dumbfounded mist ninjas came to their senses. Boss, which one should we chase? Someone pulled his leader and asked in a low voice. The leader scratched his head, looked at a captain on the other side and asked, "Man, what do you think?" The man thought for a moment and replied helplessly, "Among so many people, there must be one who is real. Their purpose is nothing more than to delay time. However, even if I know they want to delay time, I don't have any good way. I can only catch them one by one and identify them." After saying that, he shrugged his shoulders, his face full of helplessness. The leader who spoke earlier listened and said, "Only our two teams know that they have transformed and confused. Others who haven't caught up yet don't know. I think we should leave some information for them." After saying that, he took out a kunai and carved the matter of Konoha ninja's transformation and confusion on a tree trunk next to him. "Let's go." After carving, he aimed at the direction where a Hyuga clan fled, waved to his subordinates, and immediately chased after him. "Let's go too." After finding the footprints left by a target, another captain also chased after him with his teammates. Soon, Team King and another team also arrived at the location where the Konoha ninjas had previously fled. Everyone saw at a glance that there were very eye-catching characters engraved on a certain tree trunk. Transformation plus dispersion. Seeing the information left by the predecessors, King couldn't help but feel a headache. They had no choice but to split up to capture the target and then identify it. "It seems that we have to separate for a while," he said to the team leader who came with him. The team leader nodded and smiled. "Good luck to you, and good luck to ourselves. I hope that one of our two teams can find the real target." After that, he picked a footprint that no one followed and led people to chase it out. Then, King also picked a footprint at random and immediately started tracking. About 3 minutes later, Team King saw a figure walking with heavy steps and difficulty in the distance. The four people immediately accelerated to stop it. Seeing the tired and slightly familiar face, the four people immediately overlapped it with the face of the Hyuga clan in their memory. "I don't know if this is real or fake," Terumi muttered. Hearing this, Qishuang immediately glared at her fiercely and said, "Can't you say something nice? We've been going back and forth for a long time. If this is a fake, then wouldn't we have made this trip in vain? You." "Okay, stop arguing." Just as Terumi was about to get angry again, King immediately interrupted the quarrel that was about to begin. Then, he looked at the white-eyed man surrounded by four people and said solemnly, "It's already this time, and you still don't want to cancel your transformation technique? What transformation technique? I don't understand." The gray-haired middle-aged man replied expressionlessly, with spider-web-like meridians floating around the corners of his eyes. He opened his Byakugan. With the Byakugan bloodline limit, it seems that this guy should be the target we are looking for. Looking at the face that was slightly hideous because of the opening of the Byakugan, Zabuza slowly drew out his short sword. Things like transformation techniques can only imitate appearances. To put it bluntly, they are just tricks. Fake things can never become real. Things like bloodline limits cannot be imitated by transformation techniques. Chapter 45 Siege. That's not necessarily true. Qishuang also took out her kunai and said cautiously, although the transformation technique cannot imitate the changes of the Byakugan, there are more than one person in the Hyuga clan who has the Byakugan. Then, looking at the surrounded Hyuga clan, the other 3 people were all thoughtful. It is impossible for ordinary people to imitate the changes of the Byakugan using the transformation technique, but the Hyuga clan can. They already have the bloodline limit of the Byakugan. Even if they transform into the appearance of the Hyuga clan, they can still make the same Byakugan changes. In other words, the person in front of them may not be a member of the Hyuga clan, but he must be a member of the Hyuga clan. Whoever he is, take him down and see if we can cancel the transformation technique, and then we will know who he is. Meditarumi curled her lips, immediately pinched her hands and spit a mouthful of milky white mucus at her opponent. Dissolving style, dissolving monster technique. The milky white mucus expanded rapidly in the air, turning into a bed of cotton wool, covering the target below. Seeing the white cotton wool falling down, the Hyuga clan's expression was very solemn. They dodged to the side without hesitation and attacked Zabuza. Hiss. The cotton wool fell to the open ground, and wisps of white smoke rose around it. That was the ground being corroded. Clang. At the same time, Zabuza held his sword in front of him. Although he blocked the opponent's attack, he was also knocked back several steps by his palm. He immediately understood that the opponent's strength was much stronger than his. This was when the opponent attacked, when he was not in good condition. If he was in his prime, I'm afraid that one palm would be enough to knock him away. On the other side, seeing that the opponent did not hesitate to avoid his dissolving mucus, Meditarumi was a little surprised. Under normal circumstances, seeing her ninjutsu, someone would be curious and try it, either blocking on the spot or throwing ninja tools. As for the result, naturally most of them died, and died beyond recognition. Only a few lucky people escaped because of caution. The man in front of her didn't even think of probing me, and dodged without hesitation, which surprised her. Could it be that this guy knows the effect of my ninjutsu? She couldn't help but think. Only in this way can she explain why the other party was not curious at all. Perhaps I attacked too many times today, and this guy got my information from other Konoha ninjas. She silently found a reasonable explanation for the other party in her heart. Water style, iron cannon bomb. At the moment when the cotton wool fell, King Jian used a ninjutsu. He opened his mouth and spit out a water ball, which swelled against the wind and turned into a high pressure water bomb the size of a wash basin, shooting towards the Hyuga clan. Soft fist, 8 diagrams palm to restore the heaven. One strike repelled Zabuza, but the expected result was not achieved, and the Hyuga clan seemed a little disappointed. Sensing the water bomb coming from behind, he immediately twisted his feet and spun, releasing chakra from the major acupoints around his body, turning into a light blue light ball with a diameter of about 2 meters. Buzz. The high pressure water bomb hit the light blue ball without any fancy moves, but the ball did not move at all. Instead, the water bomb was quickly worn down and shrunken by the power of its high-speed rotation. In just a blink of an eye, the water bomb was worn out, leaving a shallow puddle of water around the ball of light. Let's see how long you can hold on. Seeing this, Qishuang took out 5 detonating kunai from his pocket and threw them immediately. Because he knew very well that the Hyuga family's 8 trigrams palm return to heaven was a barrier formed by chakra, and with the power of high-speed rotation, it was difficult to break it with external force. Even in the original work, he did not remember anyone who broke through the defense of this style head-on. The title of absolute defense is not exaggerated. He did not have the confidence to break through this defense. But there has never been an invincible technique in this world. Although the Hyuga family style is strong, it is not without flaws. Because of the high-speed rotation, this style puts a lot of pressure on the human body, so this move cannot be released continuously. Furthermore, the outer chakra barrier is derived from the chakra output of the caster. The longer it lasts, the stronger the attack is, and the greater the consumption of this move. At the moment, this man cannot last long with his exhausted body. He does not need to force a head-on collision with this return to heaven move. He only needs to use the detonating talisman to attack and increase the opponent's chakra consumption. Boom boom boom. After a deafening explosion, the smoke slowly dispersed, revealing a swaying figure. It seems that he really can't hold it anymore. Qishuang slightly raised the corner of his mouth. An enemy who can't even stand steadily is already at the end of his strength. However, several people did not take it lightly. Dissolution style dissolution of monsters. Terumi may spit out a ball of milky white mucus again. Water style iron cannonball at the same time. King also sprayed a high pressure water bomb and shot it at the target. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, blocked the possibility of the other party to dodge to the sides. Seeing Nana Shuang in front of him also forming a seal, the Hyuga Saji immediately gave up the idea of moving forward and quickly retreated. Because, with his all-round Byakugan, he saw the little boy behind him rushing towards him with a knife. Rather than facing the unknown ninjutsu of the boy in front, he would rather deal with the half-baked swordsmanship of the boy behind him. As for jumping into the air to dodge, he had no intention of doing so. At this moment, he was alone against 4 people, without the cover of his companions. If he jumped into the air, he would be a living target for the boy in front to perform ninjutsu. Therefore, it was more reasonable for him to choose to retreat. Bang! The milky white mucus and the high pressure water bomb collided with each other, and the water splashed all over the ground. However, the Hyuga Saji was getting closer and closer to Zabuza's sword. You still have a long way to go in your swordsmanship, but you have no chance, kid. Seeing that the opponent's blade was only a fist away from him, the Hyuga Saji smiled sarcastically and stretched out his palm. This time, he was sure that he could kill the opponent with one blow. I don't think so, Zabuza replied confidently. He believed in his captain and the other 2 teammates. Especially Nina Frost's ninjutsu was still ready to go. It was obvious that the opponent was waiting for an opportunity, a chance to decide the outcome. Just as the palm of Hyuga Saji was about to fall on Zabuza's head, a wave of chakra came from his feet. Ice release, ice binding technique. 2 white ropes suddenly shot out from the shallow puddle on the ground and instantly entangled Hyuga Saji's hands and feet. That was Nana Frost launching the ninjutsu that he had just prepared. How is it possible? Hyuga Saji widened his eyes. Facing this sudden ninjutsu, he was a little caught off guard. He originally thought that relying on his Byakugan, he could definitely kill this little devil with a sword while avoiding the ninjutsu of another little devil. However, he did not expect that the starting point of the opponent's ninjutsu was not the little devil himself, but his own feet. In that inconspicuous puddle, due to the wrong estimation and the close distance, he had no time to dodge the opponent's ninjutsu and was hit immediately. Chapter 46 Mixed Pearls. Open it for me. Unwilling to be defeated by this move, the Hyuga clan gathered all his strength and tried to break free from the restraints on his body. Crack. Immediately afterwards, countless fine cracks appeared on the 2 icy ropes. There's a chance. He was overjoyed. The 2 icy ropes were not as tight as he had imagined. Snap. Upon discovering this, he immediately shattered the icy ropes on his body in one go, and ice chips and snowflakes flew all over the sky. Unfortunately, one wrong step led to another. He was too close to the sword-wielding kid. Although the 2 frost ropes did not completely trap him, just a moment of delay, he had already stepped into the gate of death. At the moment he broke free from the restraints, a chill ran through his heart. Zabuza's sword pierced his chest first, and his palm landed in the air. He missed. Arsehole. Blood rushed up his throat and flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He forced himself to take his last breath and wanted to slap the little boy in front of him. Even if he died here, he would never let the people of Kirigakure have an easy time. Even if he died, he would drag others to be buried with him. Let me see who you are. A cold voice appeared beside him, and the Hyuga clan found that there was another person beside him. It was the Chunin-level Kirigakure ninja. The captain of this team rushed over and restrained the hand he had just raised. Then, he felt that a strange chakra was infused into the restrained hand. He knew that the other party was trying to unlock his transformation technique. The so-called transformation technique is to evenly distribute the caster's chakra throughout the body, and then imagine the target's appearance, and simulate the chakra. Because of the even distribution of chakra, this simple technique tests the caster's chakra control ability. The stronger the control ability, the better the effect of the transformation. but because of the even distribution of chakra, once the balance of the chakra of the caster is broken, his transformation will be cancelled. Bang! A white smoke rose from the body of the Hyuga clan. That was a sign that the transformation was cancelled. Although they had prepared themselves mentally that this person was not from the Hyuga clan, when they saw this scene, King and others could not help but feel a little disappointed. They worked in vain. The smoke dissipated, revealing a face that Qishuang and others were slightly familiar with. "It's you?" King was a little surprised. The person in front of him was none other than the Hyuga clan's Jonin, who had fled after fighting with them in the main camp of Konoha. No wonder he was so afraid of Mimu's dissolving mucus before. It turned out that he had experienced it before. "Yes, it's me." The man glanced at everyone with great disdain and coughed a few times, coughing up a lot of blood, and said angrily, if it weren't for my repeated battles, I was so exhausted, you couldn't have defeated me so easily." Zabuza twisted the short knife in his hand in the opponent's chest, and then pulled it out violently, saying coldly, "If you lose, you lose. Why do you have so many excuses?" As he twisted it vigorously and pulled out the knife, the ninja of the Hyuga clan completely lost the strength to resist and immediately collapsed. King also loosened his hand at the right time and let him fall to the ground. The blood flowed and immediately dyed the ground red. "Let's go." King called out to the three people and wanted to leave. You can't leave." Hearing his call, the man from the Hyuga family trembled and stretched out his palm. His eyes had lost color, but he instinctively wanted to drag the few people here, and he didn't take his last breath. Unfortunately, Qishuang and the others were not interested in a dying person, not to mention that the other party was not the target they were looking for. They still had to hurry up to find the real Hyuga clan. "You can't leave." As the footsteps of the four people faded away, the Hyuga clan ninja on the ground repeated the last sentence and stopped breathing in reluctance and helplessness. "Which direction should we chase this time?" On the way, Meditarumi asked the leader curiously. King thought for a moment, pointed to the southeast, and said, "Let's go over there and have a look. The Uchiha camp is over there, and Konoha's main force is also over there. It's easy for the Hyuga clan to be rescued there. I think it's most likely that he fled in that direction." Qishuang, who was standing by, frowned slightly and said immediately, "Captain King, I think it's more appropriate for us to go back to Konoha's main camp to look for him." "Oh." Hearing his words, King immediately landed on a branch, motioned for several people to stop, and asked solemnly, "Why?" Combining the information sent by the Human Resources Department last time and today's performance, he didn't dare to underestimate this child at all. Therefore, he wanted to hear the other party's explanation. Qishuang sorted out his thoughts a little and slowly said, "The signal of mission completion has not been received, and the Hyuga clan is still on the run. This is basically certain." Several people nodded in agreement. Qishuang continued, "In addition to our team, there are many teams searching for the Hyuga clan. When it comes to guessing the direction of the Hyuga clan's escape, I'm afraid that most of us think that he is heading to the Uchiha camp. Is there anything wrong with that? As long as he joins up with the main force of Konoha, he can be saved." Meditarumi said in surprise. Qishuang shook her head and said, "He can be saved, indeed. But the premise is that he can break through the blockade of so many of us." Hearing this, the three of them seemed to be thinking about something, but they always felt that they had overlooked something. "Do you think he can't guess the direction of our action? Or does he know that the road ahead is a life-threatening one, but he still wants to bite the bullet and force his way through?" Qishuang asked the three of them with a serious face. The three of them looked at each other, speechless. Although they could be saved by joining up with the main force of Konoha, the danger of going this way would be higher, and the Hyuga clan would be more likely to fall on the road of escape. If they were the Hyuga clan, after thinking through all this, they would definitely not go in that direction to seek death. "Then what makes you conclude that we should return to the Konoha main camp to search? Is it impossible for him to go directly back to Konoha village?" Terumi said deliberately without thinking. Qishuang rolled her eyes at her and continued, "This place is several hours away from Konoha village. I'm afraid it won't take long for him to be caught up by us. By then, he will be isolated and helpless, with no way to escape. As for returning to the Konoha main camp to search, it is precisely because we just chased him out from there that most people would not think that he would go back again, so he dared to go back. That is our blind spot in thinking. As long as we hide carefully, he will have a great chance of slipping away from under our noses. Congratulations to the birth of the first trainee fan of this book, 6 Paths of Reincarnation 2018. I feel that the first fan of each level is very meaningful, so I chose to record him/her 2019.3.6. Chapter 47 Interception. Plus, we are close to the main camp of Konoha. Even if he is intercepted by us, we can get the help of other Konoha ninjas in a short time. So, it is safer for the Hyuga clan to turn back. Nanashi explained to the 3 people in a clear and logical way. Captain King, what do you think? Terumi Mei looked at the leader who remained silent on the other side. King thought for a while and immediately decided, listen to him, let's turn back and search. But what if that person is not in this direction? Zabuza pointed to the location of the main camp of Konoha. Then, Terumi Mei also looked over and asked. They didn't want to do something meaningless. King sighed, waved to his 3 subordinates, signaling them to set off. As he hurried on his way, he explained, just as Qishuang said, there are already many Miss Ninjas going to the Uchiha camp to intercept and search. That direction does not lack our team of people. On the contrary, this reverse search is a blind spot for most people. Here we need to rule out the possibility of the Hyuga clan's whereabouts. Even if we don't find him, it is not meaningless to rule out the possibility that he escaped from this direction. Then, the 4 of them expanded the search range and searched in the direction close to the main camp of Konoha. Come here. Not long after, Zabuza made a discovery. What did you find? Terumi was the first to arrive and asked first. There is fresh blood here. Zabuza pointed to a trace of crimson at the root of a big tree and said. There were no signs of fighting nearby, indicating that this was left by someone who passed by here to rest. Moreover, judging from the other traces left, the person who left the blood was one person, not multiple people. King dipped his finger in the blood and examined it carefully. He whispered, the blood is not dry yet. Someone has been here just now. You 3, search around here quickly and find his footprints. Although he didn't know whether the person who left the blood was a fellow Kirigakure ninja or a Konoha ninja, he decided to find the other party first. Moreover, because they wanted to hunt down the Hyuga clan, most of the Kirigakure people were traveling together, so he was more inclined to believe that the traces were left by the fleeing Hyuga clan. There is a footprint here. After a while, Qishuang made a new discovery about 5 meters away from the blood. There are also footprints here. Searching with the footprints he found as the center, Terumi Mei also found new footprints quickly. Then, following the footprints and the occasional blood stains, the 4 of them immediately searched. In less than 3 minutes, they tracked down a suspicious figure in the dense forest. The man seemed to have discovered their pursuit a long time ago, but because his pace was not fast, he could not get rid of them, no matter how hard he tried. Soon, Qishuang and the other 4 stopped him under a big tree. Where do you want to go, sir of the Hyuga clan? King asked jokingly, looking at the middle-aged man panting under the tree. Although the man was covered with scars and looked extremely embarrassed, he could still recognize his weathered face, which was very consistent with the image in the photo of the Hyuga clan. Combined with Qishuang's earlier analysis, he guessed that this man was most likely the target of their mission this time, the contemporary Hyuga clan. Seeing that he was surrounded by 4 people and there was no hope of escaping, the gray-haired middle-aged man let out a long breath, as if he had let go of the last bit of luck in his heart, and slowly said, I didn't expect that. After getting rid of so many idiots, I was still caught up by you Kirigakure people. It seems that you Kirigakure people are not all idiots. As he said that, he smiled self-deprecatingly, which was regarded as tacitly acknowledging his identity. Qishuang, send a signal. King stared at the middle-aged man in front of him, issued an order to his subordinates, and then made a look at the other 2. Take him down. Before the words fell, the 3 of them rushed towards the Hyuga clan under the big tree. Nanashuan quickly took out a small rocket launcher from her ninja bag. Naking had distributed the signal flares to the 3 earlier, and warned that they could only be used when the Hyuga clan's traces were found. Now, it was time to use it. He quickly moved to a place with sparse leaves, pointed to the sky, and pulled the fuse down. Whoosh! Accompanied by a piercing scream, a bright spark penetrated the leaves and suddenly exploded in the sky, forming an extremely eye-catching red smoke screen. Just as Qishuang sent the signal, a spark also rushed into the tree canopy behind the Hyuga clan. After struggling to break through the heavy branches and leaves, it finally bloomed in the sky. A yellow smoke screen was born. Something's going on. The mist ninja immediately discovered the signal in the sky and immediately rushed to the place where the signal was sent. At the same time, the Konoha ninja also discovered the signal. In addition, the Hyuga clan chose to turn back and hide, so when Qishuang and others found his location, they were very close to the main camp of Konoha. Therefore, many Konoha ninjas rushed to the signal transmitter to check the situation. At this time, you are still so worrying. Looking at the middle-aged man in front of him, King said with a smile, while coldly slashing the kunai. Alas. The Hyuga clan sighed lightly, blocked King's kunai, and then suddenly raised his head and said, the older this man gets, the more afraid of death he is. If there is a chance to live, of course I want to try. Before he finished speaking, he had already rushed to the little girl on the other side. Zabuza seized the opportunity, stuck to him in an instant, raised his short knife, aimed at the back of the opponent's neck and slashed it. Just when he was full of confidence and thought he would kill with one blow, the Hyuga clan, who was facing away from him, suddenly turned his left hand around and accurately clamped his blade with his two index and middle fingers. Didn't your teacher teach you that sneak attacks are meaningless for the Byakugan? A teasing voice came, and Zabuza saw that the man loosened his blade and then spun suddenly. Soft fist technique bag the palm rescue light blue ball of light suddenly appeared in his field of vision, followed by a rapid rotation force that immediately bounced him away. Dissolution technique on the other side. Because Zabuza briefly held his opponent back, Terumi Mei also took the opportunity to complete her own technique and immediately spit out a ball of milky white mucus, covering the light blue ball of light. However, it did not have the effect she expected. The light blue ball of light was like a spinning top, and with its powerful centrifugal force, it immediately threw away the milky white mucus covering it. For a moment, the mucus splashed and hit the surrounding tree trunks, making crackling sounds, forcing King and others to be unable to get close and had to stay away. There are even several trees that have been corroded by the force of corrosion because they were covered with too much dissolving mucus. I'm catching up on Naruto recently. When I watched Naruto a few years ago, I only felt that Naruto's growth was very touching, especially the bond with Nejima was particularly shocking. When I looked back again, I didn't have the same feeling as before. Naruto is fine in other aspects. He is a very positive and optimistic person, but I can't stand the way he treats Nejima, especially during the period of Itachi's death. He already knew the truth about Itachi and the reason why Nejima wanted revenge, but he still wanted to influence him. It's too vicious. His character is too white, so white that I can't stand it. In the early years, I always thought that Nejima was ruthless and selfish. Now looking back, Nejima is a real flesh and blood person, and Naruto is abnormal. Chapter 48 No Surrender. Don't use that trick again. Seeing this, King shouted loudly to the little girl not far away. Oh. Terumi pouted her lips in response. The light blue ball of light dispersed, revealing a middle-aged man panting. Don't struggle. I think you should just go back to the hidden mist village with us. King approached slowly, using words to wear down the other party's fighting spirit. Go back with you? How is that possible? Looking at the three people who surrounded him again, the Hyuga clan shook his head. You should know that my position will never allow me to be captured alive. After saying that, he posed the starting posture of the soft fist again. In the dense forest, many hidden mist ninjas and Konoha ninjas met unexpectedly. Without saying a word, the two sides started fighting again. The roar of the explosion gradually approached the position of King's team. That was when the two sides fought and moved forward with difficulty. It seems that I can only take your body back. Sensing the battle fluctuations getting closer and closer, King said to the middle-aged man solemnly. As the number of people on both sides increases, the situation will only become more chaotic. King could fully foresee that they could not take the living Hyuga clan away. After hearing his words, Hyuga clan showed a hint of a glance in the direction of the battle wave and said jokingly, "Perhaps you can't even take my body away." As he said that, he showed a mocking smile. Water style, Iron Cannon Bomb King immediately used a ninjutsu and spit out a high pressure water bomb the size of a basin at his opponent. Crack. With a crisp sound, Hyuga clan barely avoided the incoming water bomb, but a tree not far behind him suffered. It was hit head on and a huge crack appeared on the trunk. Because of the huge impact of the water bomb, the center of gravity was unbalanced, and the broken body could no longer support its own weight. With a crackling sound, it fell down unwillingly. Without the canopy of the tree to block it, the originally dark forest suddenly became bright. At the same time, Zabuza, holding a short knife, approached from the side. "Didn't I tell you that sneak attacks are meaningless for the Byakugan, kid?" Hyuga Saji suddenly turned around and slapped the little boy who rushed up. The Byakugan's all-round vision was enough for him to see the surrounding situation clearly without being attacked by others. Zabuza's expression did not waver at all, but he raised his sword and slashed across. In an instant, the two of them crossed each other. However, Hyuga Saji's palm strike missed, and there was another long knife wound on his body. Blood oozed out, and the clothes, that were already blood-stained, suddenly turned red. Whoosh! The sound of breaking through the air followed. He did not hesitate, and immediately jumped several steps forward. There were several more shurikens at the original position. Those were the ninja tools thrown by Terumi Mei right after Zabuza's surprise attack. TSK. Seeing that the ninja tools missed, she frowned. The all-round vision is really too troublesome. Sneak attacks really don't make much sense under those eyes. How is it possible? How could you hurt me? Standing firmly, Hyuga Saji covered the wound in front of him and questioned the little boy with the knife in disbelief. Zabuza turned slowly and replied coldly, "You can indeed see my movements, but it does not mean that you can keep up with my movements. After a series of battles and fleeing all the way, your physical strength and chakra have been almost consumed. Every time you attack now, it means that you will become weaker, and it will become more and more difficult for you to resist our attacks. It is better to give up the meaningless struggle." He coldly and ruthlessly told a fact that the other party could not accept. "No, no, no. The glory of the Hyuga family must not be destroyed in my hands. Even if I die, I will never surrender." Hyuga Saji gritted his teeth and took a fighting stance again. Seeing that the opponent still had the will to fight, King also felt a little headache. With the opponent's white eyes and the bull-shaped defense technique, it would be difficult for them to completely defeat the opponent in a short time. But now the rescue of both sides is about to arrive, and the situation will be even more chaotic. If they can't kill the opponent in one fell swoop, while he is isolated and helpless, they will have to work hard later. Therefore, they must fight quickly. I can give you a 3-second opportunity. Are you sure you can take him down in one fell swoop? Just when King was extremely anxious, a childish voice came from behind. It was Qishuang, who had just released the signal flare and came over. "What good ideas do you have? Tell me." Seeing Zabuza approaching again, Terumi Mei threw several kunai to cover and turned her head to ask excitedly. At the same time, King, who was about to attack, also stopped his action and patiently prepared to listen to the ideas of this little subordinate. Looking at the Hyuga clan who was fighting with Zabuza because of poor condition, Qishuang said meaningfully, "It won't work if you say it out. You just wait for the opportunity to take action." Hearing what he said, the boss Terumi Mei was not happy and immediately pouted. "HMPH. A stingy guy. You just need to cover Zabuza and don't let him fall into the hands of that old guy." Qishuang pointed at the old man and the young man fighting in the field and said to them helplessly. Perhaps it was because the Hyuga clan was not in good condition. Although Zabuza barely tied with him, he was only 10 years old after all, and his combat experience was not as good as the other party. After just a few rounds, he was figured out by the other party and gradually fell into a disadvantage. Then, Qishuang solemnly instructed the team leader, "Captain, please seize the opportunity. I can only use this method once. The second time, it won't work." "Okay." King nodded and then stared at the middle-aged man fighting with Zabuza, ready to attack at any time. Qishuang took a deep breath, looked at the treetops that were sparse because of the collapse of a big tree, and a sly smile flashed across his face. Then, while making hand seals, he said to the Hyuga clan with a slightly envious tone, "I heard that the Hyuga clan's Byakugan is an all-round visual ability, with no blind spots in 360 degrees. I wonder if it's true or false." The Hyuga clan, who was fighting Zabuza fiercely, was a little confused when he heard this. Despite this, he still replied with great pride, "Of course it's true. The Byakugan of my Hyuga clan is one of the top 3 eye techniques in the ninja world." As he said this, he gently turned his head and avoided the ninja tool thrown by another hateful little girl. If it weren't for the leader of the Miss Ninja who didn't know when to attack, he didn't need to force himself to maintain a tie with this sword-wielding kid. As early as the 5th round of the two people's fight, he had already figured out the kid's moves. Just to paralyze the opponent and give people an impression of weakness, he put away 2 points of strength and speed. Although he didn't know how much effect this little hidden thing could play, he still abided by the survival rules on the battlefield. Never let your opponent know your true colors, because that might be your chance to turn the tables. Originally, I thought that when writing about the hunt for the Hyuga clan, there would be a wonderful battle or something. But when I actually wrote this, I found that it felt like an anticlimactic ending, because the Hyuga clan was exhausted and just barely holding on, and no matter how hard they fought, it wouldn't be that intense. It's a bit like Guan Yu's northern expedition. The battle with Pang Di was the beginning and the climax, and when they were defeated and retreated to Meicheng, the people were exhausted, and there was nothing left to fight. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 Eyes. 3 major eye techniques. Hearing this, Qishuang showed a meaningful smile and then said, "Then open your white eyes and see if you can catch my move." Ice escape. Ice mirror technique. After the seal was completed, he immediately injected chakra into the air above, and the surrounding water vapor condensed rapidly under the effect of his ice attribute chakra. "Are you finally making a move?" Sensing the chakra gathering above his head, the Hyuga clan forced Zabuza away with the palm and quickly retreated 2 steps, preparing to meet the unknown attack with a serious face. Although he didn't know what the other party had prepared, he also heard the previous conversation between the few people very clearly. The kid boasted that he could create a 3-second flaw in him, which was certainly unbelievable, but he was still unwilling to neglect it. In addition to leaving a little attention on the 4 people, the rest of his attention fell on the chakra gathered in the sky. On the other side, Zabuza and the other 3 saw Qishuang launching the technique, and they also knew not to make a rash move, but put on a look of being ready for battle. Then, directly above the Hyuga clan, Qishuang controlled the ice attribute chakra and the surrounding water vapor to condense into a transparent round ice block. The ice block was thin at the edge and thick in the middle, and it was completely an ice convex lens. At the moment, when the convex lens was completely formed, the bright sunlight refracted through it and shot straight to the middle-aged man with white eyes below through the gaps in the leaves. The Hyuga clan, who was carefully on guard, could not have guessed that such a strange change would happen in the sky. Through the white eyes, he saw that the chakra in the sky suddenly stabilized, as if it had turned into something, and then a beam of bright sunlight shot into his retina. An amazing stinging and burning sensation surged to his scalp, and he felt like someone had stuffed a sun into his eyes. There was only a white expanse in front of him, and he could not see anything. "Ah, my eyes, my eyes." He was completely panicked. On the other side, seeing the Hyuga clan suddenly cover his eyes and scream in fear, King immediately understood that the time had come. Without the slightest hesitation, he used a body flash technique to move behind the opponent and thrust his kunai into his defenseless back. As if sensing danger, the Hyuga clan instinctively turned his head, but he could not see anything. At this moment, a cold feeling pierced his heart. The fear and panic of the sudden loss of vision were completely suppressed, leaving only an inexplicable chill, so cold that he almost stopped breathing. Before he could completely come to his senses, another cold feeling pierced through his chest. He knew that he was finished. Puff. His throat felt sweet, and he felt as if something was added to his mouth, which he sprayed out involuntarily. He knew that it was blood. The vision that suddenly disappeared gradually recovered, and a familiar face appeared in front of him. It was the kid who wielded the knife before. However, the knife in the opponent's hand had already pierced his chest, and only a section of the knife handle mixed with dark red blood remained in his hand. Very, very good, very good. Mixed with the blood in his mouth, he looked at another little boy not far away and smiled angrily. Until this moment, he finally understood why the other party deliberately let him hear those words and deliberately asked him about the Byakugan. Because that was intentional, deliberately arousing his attention. Let him deliberately observe the magic in the sky, so as to create an opportunity to shine light directly into his eyes. If he hadn't been curious and focused most of his attention on it, that beam of light would never have made him blind in an instant. At most, it would be a little dazzled, not like just now, unable to see anything. Unfortunately, he understood it too late. Qishuang snapped his fingers, and the ice mirror in the air quickly dissipated. He walked over with a smile and said playfully, "The Byakugan is the greatest advantage of your Hyuga clan, but it is also its strength that makes it easy for you to ignore its hidden weaknesses. Your eyes see too clearly." He emphasized the word clearly, with an undisguised sarcasm on his face. Damn. As if unable to withstand his ridicule, the Hyuga clan leader could no longer suppress his inner anger, and immediately struggled to stretch out a hand, wanting to do something to him. Unfortunately, the strength of his limbs seemed to be completely taken away by the opponent's two fatal attacks. No matter how he struggled, he could not take a step. He could only let his arms fall down again helplessly. I heard that the Byakugan of the Hyuga branch family is protected by the bird in a cage. Once it is taken out, it will be immediately destroyed by the curse seal, and cannot be transplanted again. I don't know if the Byakugan of this clan is the same, King said while pinching his chin, pulling out the kunai behind the Hyuga clan leader. At the same time, Zabuza also followed suit and pulled out the short knife that was inserted into the opponent's chest. However, his knife was inserted too deep, and he spent a lot of effort when pulling it out. The last breath of the Hyuga clan leader was not completely cut off, but he suffered a lot of pain in vain. Without the support of the two people, he could no longer stand, and fell to the ground immediately. However, his gradually blurred consciousness still supported him to look at the hateful kid. The kid who used ninjutsu to refract sunlight. If it weren't for that hateful kid, maybe he would have held on until Konoha's rescue arrived. Facing his almost cannibalistic gaze, Qishuang lifted his forehead protector without fear and said slowly, "The caged bird curse seal is usually branded on the foreheads of Hyuga clan members, showing a very obvious blue mark. There's nothing on his forehead, so he doesn't have that curse seal on his body?" Terumi Mei also came up. Feeling like being surrounded by four people like livestock, the Hyuga clan felt more and more humiliated. However, his life was like a candle in the wind, which could be extinguished at any time, and he even found it difficult to move a finger. Even worse than the humiliation, he heard a more terrifying message. This group of people are planning to take away his Byakugan. No, I can't let them take away my Byakugan. Or maybe it was a last breath. His originally blurred consciousness gradually became clear again. But his body was not up to the task at all, and he couldn't muster any strength. Since there is no bird in a cage, then dig out his eyes and take them back for a thorough study. Seeing the smooth forehead of the Hyuga clan leader, King pulled out a new kunai and stretched it towards the opponent's right eye. Seeing his action, Qishuang wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and thought to himself, "This is too fierce. We don't even have a medical ninja, and you can just use a kunai to perform this kind of eye removal surgery?" He was even a little worried that with such a fierce operation by Captain King, would he damage the Byakugan. Unfortunately, his worry was a little unnecessary. Although King was not a professional medical ninja, he was also a ninja close to the strength of a jonin. Apart from anything else, he still had the ability to control the basic details. It was just taking out an eyeball, so it wouldn't damage the eyeball. In less than a minute, King carefully removed a Byakugan completely and sealed it in a scroll. Chapter 50, Extreme Joy. Just as King was concentrating on getting another Byakugan, Nanashiro's solemn voice came from behind him. "Captain, don't rush to get the remaining Byakugan. Konoha's people have arrived. At the same time, Terumi Mei, Zabuza, and Nanashiro quickly surrounded King in the middle, carefully guarding the outside. Hearing this, King came to his senses and noticed that a Konoha ninja not far away was staring at him closely. It seemed that he felt that he could not fight 4 people alone. The man stood nervously 5 meters away and did not dare to move forward rashly. At the same time, a series of noisy sounds mixed with shouts and footsteps were rapidly approaching in the dense forest. It seemed that Konoha and Kirigakure's people had already fought all the way here. There is still one Byakugan left to be taken down. It's a waste to keep it like this. King glanced at the Hyuga clan lying on the ground with his peripheral vision and thought it was a pity. Then, he whispered to his 3 junior subordinates, "Can you 3 buy me another minute? I want to take down the last Byakugan. If you want to take it, hurry up. Don't waste time." Terumi raised her eyebrows and looked at the figure approaching in the dense forest with a serious expression. Zabuza didn't say anything, but silently drew out his short sword and responded with practical actions. Nanashiro sighed and said, "Let's do our best." After getting the promise of the 3, King didn't say anything else and immediately turned around to take down the last Byakugan. The figures in the dense forest rushed out, and Nanashiro and his companions suddenly found that the people coming were 3 Konoha ninjas. The Konoha ninja who arrived earlier immediately shouted to his companions anxiously, "Hurry, hurry up. That's the Hyuga clan. They want to take the Byakugan." Although the man on the ground was covered in blood and was blocked by 4 Kirigakure ninjas, he still barely recognized that it was the current head of the Hyuga clan through the remaining Byakugan and the facial contours. From the empty right eye socket of the Hyuga clan, they understood what the Kirigakure ninjas were doing. What? Hearing that the man on the ground was the Hyuga clan and the Kirigakure ninja who had taken the Byakugan, the 3 Konoha ninjas were shocked. Without any hesitation, they immediately threw the kunai in their hands, hoping to stop the brutal behavior of the Kirigakure ninjas. Dissolving style, dissolving monsters technique. Terumi was quick-witted and immediately formed a seal to spit out a mouthful of milky white mucus, which turned into a thick bed of cottoned wool, blocking all the kunai thrown by the opponent. Many black kunai flowed along the dissolving mucus to the ground and immediately became thinner. Several Konoha ninjas who took advantage of the situation and rushed forward were shocked because they were just thinking about whether to directly step over the mucus to attack. Then, the 4 of them immediately changed direction, circled around, and rushed towards the 4 Kirigakure ninjas inside again. Ding. Zabuza immediately blocked one of them with his short sword. Terumi spat out another mouthful of mucus and stopped one of them. The remaining 2 rushed straight towards Qishuang. "Do I really look so easy to bully?" Seeing this, Qishuang felt a toothache and began to reflect on himself. However, he did not stop his movements, and a set of hand seals was formed in an instant. Ice release, ice cone technique. The attributeless chakra was transformed by him and possessed the nature of ice. He spread out his palms, and the ice attribute chakra penetrated his body and condensed rapidly in his palms. In just a blink of an eye, 2 half-foot-long ice cones appeared in his hands. Go. Under his control, one cone aimed at one person, and it shot out from his palm with a whoosh, like an arrow shot straight at the 2 Konoha ninjas running towards him. One of them reacted faster, and when the ice cone was about to hit him, he used the kunai in his hand to push the ice cone aside, and immediately avoided the attack. Hearing a crisp sound behind him, he instinctively glanced back and saw that the half-foot-long icicle had been inserted into a section of the tree trunk. Although the half of the icicle exposed outside had been broken, a piece of white frost quickly hung around the half that was inserted into the tree trunk. What an amazing cold air! He was immediately shocked. If he was really hit by this blow, even if he would not die immediately, the terrifying cold air would make him lose his resistance and be at the mercy of others. At the same time, his companions behind him did not have such a sensitive reaction ability as him, and could only barely avoid the vital parts, watching the icicle pierce his shoulder. In just a moment, the impact inertia brought by the icicle immediately made him stagger. As a last resort, he had to stop his sudden attack. Then, an extremely cold breath came from the icicle that pierced his shoulder and spread throughout his body in an instant. He felt like he was suddenly stuffed into the freezer of a refrigerator. The originally boiling fighting blood seemed to have been cooled down, and the temperature suddenly dropped a lot. His hands and feet were cold, his 5 fingers were stiff, and even holding the kunai tightly was a bit difficult. He knew that he could no longer help. Then, he stopped, pulled out the ice spike on his shoulder, and shouted to the companion in front of him, "Be careful of that boy's ice." "Yeah, I know." The companion responded without turning his head, and his eyes looking at the little boy became more and more solemn. "Captain, are you not done yet?" Seeing more and more figures appearing around, Qishuang asked behind him anxiously. Although the people who came were not necessarily all from Konoha, at this time, the more people came, the more chaotic the situation would be. This was extremely disadvantageous for King, who needed a quiet environment and precise operation. King didn't even bother to wipe the sweat on his forehead. While operating carefully, he shouted, "Just a little bit. Just a little bit." Ding. Accompanied by a clear sound, Nanashi blocked a kunai thrown by the Konoha man behind him, and then approached and tangled with the man, so that he could not free his hands to interfere with Captain King's movements. Just as King was nervously and focused on digging out the last Byakugan, the consciousness of the Hyuga clan, who had not yet completely died, had already turned upside down. Since the creation of the bird in the cage, the Byakugan has never flowed out again. The glory of the Hyuga family must not be tarnished by me, and the Byakugan must not be lost in my hands. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely. Perhaps it was because of the last breath, or the effect of his self-motivation. His heavy body regained a little consciousness again. He relied on his intuition, and struggled to put his fingers into his ninja bag. "Captain King, are you still not done?" Nanashi, who was entangled with his opponent, called out anxiously, because several Konoha ninjas and Kirigakure ninjas rushed out of the forest to fight. "It's done," King said with a happy face, after cutting off the last blood vessel connected to the eyeball. At this moment, his smile froze on his face, because he saw a stack of detonating tags that had already been activated by the Hyuga clan. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.